Part 28. Fringe Artists in the Entertainment Industry. Author, Chizuda Xiaomao. Chapter 281. Chapter 272-270. Li Dabai, I treat you as my best friend, and you hook up with my man. Under the winter night, the capital is no longer bustling with the past, leaving only the silent cold wind blowing through the alleys. Only a few dead leaves of the bare locust tree remained in the cold wind. Chen Lian tightened his scarf and walked under the tree. He came to the door of Chen Miren's courtyard, opened the door and walked in. Chen Lian was not happy to live in a courtyard house in the winter. Even though she bought a villa for Chen Miren, she refused to live in it. She insisted on waiting for the birth of her child before the family of three could move there. Chen Lian's head hurt when he heard the words family of three. After entering the courtyard, Chen Lian slowed down, listened carefully, and made sure there was no movement in the house before opening the thick curtain of the main room and pushing the door open. As soon as Chen Lian entered, he felt the warm air surrounding him. The ground dragon in the courtyard was quite good, much better than the air conditioner. Miren Chen, who was leaning on the sofa and reading a book, saw Chen Lian coming in. She immediately put down the book in her hand and wanted to get up to get clothes for Chen Lian. Chen Lian said quickly, "Stop moving, the little fairy is falling with a big belly." Chen Miren held her waist and felt that it was not convenient to move, so she sat back and watched Chen Lian take off his clothes and sit over, then whispered, "I thought you wouldn't come today." "How could it be?" Chen Lian smiled and gently hugged Chen Miren, but he couldn't help but cursed in his heart, "Weren't you the one who called me 7 or 8 times in 10 minutes? Chen Miren leaned on Chen Lian's shoulder and said, "My mother is not here tonight, and I want to talk to you." After saying that, Chen Miren took Chen Lian's hand and placed it on her bulging belly. She tilted her head and looked at Chen Lian tenderly, her eyes shining with excitement. When Chen Lian came, he guessed that Beauty Chen must have something big to do with him tonight. The most likely possibility was to continue to force the marriage. When he heard Beauty Chen's words, he suddenly felt troubled. The limelight was getting bigger this time. Chen Lian Beauty will not be fooled so easily. However, Chen Lian still looked at Beauty Chen with a relaxed expression and asked, "What do you want to talk about?" I think Chen Miren stopped when she reached her lips, turned around and said, "You came here in a hurry and haven't eaten yet. The kitchen has stewed pigeon soup for you. Do you want to have a bowl of soup first?" "Okay, I happen to be hungry." Chen Lian stood up, rubbed his stomach and said, "I'm going to have a drink of soup first." Chen Lian ran to the kitchen and looked at the pigeon soup that was still warming and couldn't help but sigh. This was really difficult. Chen Lian filled a bowl of soup and sipped it in small sips, thinking about what he should do if Beauty Chen was forced to marry later. It took Chen Lian 10 minutes to finish the bowl of soup. He put the bowl into the sink and went back to the main room. It's already reached this point. It's useless to think so much. Just open the skylight and speak frankly. After Chen Lian pushed open the door of the main room and entered, he said before Miren Chen could say anything, "Do you want to talk to me about marriage or children?" Seeing Chen Lian take the initiative to speak, Chen Miren was stunned for a moment, felt a little entangled in her heart, then nodded and said, "Let's talk about both." Chen Lian nodded and sat next to Chen Miren and said, "We have talked about the marriage before, so we won't talk about it for now. You don't have to worry about the children. I will arrange everything. Let's talk about marriage first." Chen Miren looked at Chen Lian and said, "Now there is nothing to hide." Chen Lian leaned on the sofa and looked at Beauty Chen and said, "Okay, I'll listen to what you say." Seeing Chen Lian's attitude, Chen Miren far hesitated. She knew Chen Lian's character too well and was a little worried about whether she would completely bore him. Chen Lian was a little surprised by Chen Miren's silence. He looked at Chen Miren and asked, "Why didn't you say anything? Now you have changed your mind and want to get married, right?" Chen Miren didn't expect that Chen Lian would take the initiative to raise this topic. She was silent for a while and then nodded. Chen Lian didn't have any surprises. He crossed his legs and couldn't help but take out a pack of cigarettes from his body. He held it between his fingers and didn't light it. He just turned it around in his hand. I understand what you are thinking. You want to protect your child's future. You don't have to worry about this. I'm not a cold-blooded person. Chen Lian paused for a moment and looked at Beauty Chen and said seriously, if you want to get married, I can give it to you. A ritual. Chen Lian added an accent to the last two words, and Chen Myron understood what he meant. He could only provide a ceremony but not a guarantee, let alone a marriage certificate. Chen Myron was silent. She knew that this was Chen Lian's concession. He also changed his previous attitude and directly opened the skylight and spoke frankly, indicating that this was his bottom line. But this was different from what she thought. Mei Chen didn't know if she should continue to test it, or if she should give up for the time being. Chen Lian's current wealth and status made her afraid to push too hard. The most important thing was that she found that Gong Li had not been heard from for a long time. She had heard Li Dabai chatting with others at the company and asking what was the best way to give birth to a child. She had some doubts about whether Gong Li was pregnant like herself and was hiding to give birth to the baby. If he pushed too far, he would be doomed if he pushed Chen Lian to Gong Li. Chen Lian waited for a while but didn't wait for Mei Chen's answer, so he threw the cigarette in his hand into the trash can, sat next to her, took her hand and said, I will give you whatever I can, but I hope you don't force me. Okay, I understand. Chen Myron looked at Chen Lian with a disappointed tone and said, it's late, go to bed early. You will probably be very busy tomorrow. Well, then go to bed early and don't think so much. My second uncle will come over in a few days when he is done with his work. Chen Lian also gave Chen Myron some reassurance at the end. Early the next morning, Chen Lian just woke up and turned on his turned-off mobile phone. After a while, the phone rang. Chen Lian glanced at Mei Chen, who was still sleeping, and immediately left the bedroom with his cell phone, closing the door before pressing the answer button. As soon as the call was connected, Li Dabai's voice came over there. Teacher Chen, are you up? Li Dabai said excitedly and anxiously, I received a lot of calls from reporters, all wanting to interview you. Chen Lian took a sip of water and then said, don't worry about this. We'll talk about it after we meet. Is there anything else besides this? Yes. The Queen is looking for you, Ning Jing, young Master Zhou, and Lu Xiaoli are all looking for you anyway. Oh, by the way, Director Huo is also looking for you, and Zhang Quilai. Chen Lian, suddenly he didn't want to go out. But it's definitely impossible not to go out. I just took the bid yesterday, and I must take this opportunity to be interviewed by reporters today to advertise well. Making money is very important. Chen Lian has to support so many people by himself, and it gives him a headache just thinking about it. Chen Lian didn't wake up Chen Myron. She doesn't have to go to work now. She can just take good care of herself at home. Chen Lian simply packed up and went out. He went directly to the advertising agency, which was more formal, and he could also promote the advertising agency while being interviewed by reporters. More than 20 minutes later, Chen Lian arrived at the company. Before he got out of the car, he saw a group of reporters squatting at the door of the company. With so many people, I should have known that I would have asked Dabai to pick me up. Chen Lian couldn't help but muttered, pushed open the taxi door and got out of the car. Here it comes. Chen Lian is here. A sharp-eyed reporter immediately spotted Chen Lian and ran over with his camera in hand. In less than 10 seconds, Chen Lian was surrounded, with more than a dozen reporters surrounding him asking various questions. How does it feel to win the bid? Do you really think the price of 280 million is cheap? Some people say that you are the youngest billionaire in China. What do you want to say? Chen Lian stood there and felt that his mind was about to be exploded by the noise, but he still held back his temper and looked at them and said, "I know everyone has a lot of questions to ask. We can go to the company to have a cup of tea and chat slowly. We're going to be interviewed anyway, so why don't we all come together and do it all at once?" After hearing Chen Lian's words, the reporters stopped, but some people still asked curiously, "Is this your company too?" Hong'an advertising is also very famous recently. Chen Lian nodded and said, "Half of it, let's go in first, it's not good to be stuck in the street." The pedestrians on the roadside had indeed given strange looks, and the reporters also gave way to Chen Lian and followed him into the advertising company. Chen Lian is now the youngest and most eye-catching boss in the business world, and reporters don't dare to make too much fuss because they still have to interview him. Moreover, Chen Lian is not only a businessman, but also a great artist. He is famous all over the world and has been promoted as a positive example in China. He has almost become a red flag bearer for cultural export. How can reporters dare to stab people like this? As soon as Chen Lian entered the company, all the employees in the office turned to look over, with curiosity and respect in their eyes. Li Dabai came first and asked these reporters to go to the conference room first. After all the reporters went to the conference room, Li Dabai breathed a sigh of relief and looked at Chen Lian and said, "They didn't come in just now because they were afraid that they wouldn't be able to catch you right away. I had to wait for you to come before I was willing to come in." "You all want to get exclusive news?" Chen Lian asked as he walked to the office. "Have you sent someone to pick up your second uncle?" "We've sent someone and they should be here soon." Li Dabai quickly took a step to open the office door for Chen Lian and walked in before saying, "How will the interview be arranged later? Let the second uncle deal with it first, otherwise it will be all gossip when I go." As soon as Chen Lian walked to the desk and sat down, Li Dabai handed over a newspaper. "Teacher Chen, look at this is today's headline." Chen Lian took it and took a look. The huge headline on the newspaper read, "The CCTV Standard King was born, and the sky-high price of 280 million was snapped up by Lixin VCD." The title is quite serious, not a spoof or shocking one like Xiangjiang, and it's good that Chen Lian's name is not included in the title. Moreover, the photo of me in the newspaper was also well taken. He is very handsome, and he is a proper abstinence-type domineering president. It is estimated that after today, Chen Lian will become the best son-in-law candidate in the hearts of countless ants, the golden turtle among golden turtles. Chen Lian saw that there were a lot of words of praise for himself at the beginning, such as stars, artists, the most courageous young entrepreneurs. Anyway, he was full of praise. Chen Lian couldn't help but feel happy. He was about to take a closer look at what was written at the end when he heard a familiar voice coming from outside. "Sister Dabai? Is Teacher Chen here?" Gao Yuan found out early in the morning that Chen Lian had spent 280 million to win CCTV's bid, and immediately came over without even attending class. Such a man is really irresistible. Those who are richer than him are not as handsome as him, and those who are more handsome than him are not as talented as him, not to mention that I have seen a few people who are more handsome than him. Gao Yuan ran into the office in a hurry, and when she saw Chen Lian sitting behind the desk, she couldn't help but feel excited and wanted to run over. Chen Lian coughed immediately and reminded her that there were other people in the office. He didn't want people to misunderstand that he had any improper relationship with a 17-year-old girl. Even if that person is Li Dabai. The image of a domineering president that has just been established cannot be destroyed. Gao Yuan noticed Chen Lian's eyes, and then noticed that Li Dabai was also in the office. She immediately stopped and called Teacher Chen, then trotted to Li Dabai and hugged her arm, calling her Sister Dabai. Li Dabai glanced at Gao Yuan, then turned to look at Chen Lian, and he suddenly guessed that these two people had gotten together at some point. "I suddenly felt a little angry with Gao Yuan. I treat you as my best friend, but you are seducing my man. Are you still working together to hide it from me?" She knows Chen Lian's passionate and lustful character. Li Dabai is not angry with Chen Lian. She is just angry with you, Gao Yuan. I regard you as my best friend, and you treat me like this. It doesn't matter if you hook up with Chen Lian. The key is you're still hiding it from me. Sure enough, best friends and everything are fake. Gao Yuan approached her just to hook up with Chen Lian. This hypocritical woman. Li Dabai immediately took his hand out of Gao Yuan's arms, looked at her expressionlessly and said, "Don't call me sister, I can't afford it." Gao Yuan suddenly felt a little embarrassed, as if she had been exposed. Chen Lian saw Li Dabai's emotions, coughed and looked at Gao Yuan and said, "Yuan, why are you here looking for me? Is the director looking for you again? It's just a movie. Don't be so excited. We are all college students. Now, be more mature." Hearing Chen Lian come to her rescue, Gao Yuan immediately replied, "Yes, I just came to talk to you about this. I'm sorry, Teacher Chen, I'm a little too excited." After speaking, Gao Yuan glanced at Li Dabai carefully, then took her hand and whispered, "Sister Dabai, what's wrong with you? Why are you angry with me? Did I make you unhappy somewhere? I apologize to you, okay?" Li Dabai wanted to take his hand out but failed. He turned to look at Gao Yuan's innocent and aggrieved expression, and wondered if he had misunderstood. "Sister Dabai, please don't be angry, please tell me what I did wrong, and I will definitely change it in the future," Gao Yuan said coquettishly, swinging Li Dabai's arm. Seeing Li Dabai's somewhat suspicious expression, Chen Lian then said, "Dabai, what's going on? Yuan is young, so don't be familiar with her. By the way, go see if your second uncle is here, and then go entertain those people. Reporter, let me talk to Yuan about the movie." Li Dabai looked at Chen Lian with a serious face, suppressed the suspicion in his heart, turned to look at Gao Yuan and said, "I'm fine, you can talk to Teacher Chen." After speaking, Li Dabai left, but he deliberately didn't close the door when he went out. After Li Dabai left, Gao Yuan breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Teacher Chen, you scared me to death just now. I thought Sister Dabai found out and wanted to break up with me." Chen Lian laughed and said, "You are still worried about this? Why didn't I see you scared at the time? That's different." Gao Yuan blushed and muttered, and added in her heart that even if Li Dabai was angry, she would not give up. Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 282. Chapter 273-271. Princess Su. In the quiet office, Gao Yuan cautiously poked her head out and took a look. She didn't find Li Dabai, so she immediately closed the door. After closing the door, Gao Yuan immediately turned around and looked at Chen Lian, with a thief-like smile on her face, and trotted towards Chen Lian. Gao Yuan walked around behind the desk, immediately straddled Chen Lian's lap, put her arms around his neck and kissed him. After a few minutes, Gao Yuan let go of Chen Lian with a blushing face, and looked at Chen Lian's handsome face with rippling eyes. Chen Lian couldn't help pinching her nose and said, "Don't touch it when you kiss next time. If you're not touching me, you should have taken your hands away before talking." Gao Yuan blushed and glanced down, then hugged Chen Lian and put her chin on his shoulder and said, "I want to take an acting class, Mr. Chen. Will you still hit the soles of my feet?" "I don't have time to teach you today." Chen Lian released his hand and patted Gao Yuan gently and said, "Come down quickly, Dabai will be here later." Gao Yuan pursed her lips and snorted unhappily, but she still got off Chen Lian honestly. "How about confessing to Sister Dabai? In the worst case, we won't be best friends anymore. Anyway, Teacher Chen has already got half of it, and next year he will get it all." The less she could eat, the more Gao Yuan became obsessed with her. Every day, she thought about turning 18 quickly and not going out with Chen Lian for 3 days and 3 nights. I really want to grow up quickly. Gao Yuanyuan looked at Chen Lian and sighed. Chen Lian smiled, adjusted his coat, looked at her and said, I think it's pretty good now. Don't you like this feeling? Gao Yuanyuan blushed and muttered, I like it, but it always feels incomplete. Let's talk about it next year. Okay, you go and see Dabai and call her over. I still have a lot of things to deal with today. At this time, Chen Lian has regained the feeling of being a domineering boss. Gao Yuanyuan particularly likes Chen Lian's appearance. He feels that he is domineering but gentle, especially the expressionless face paired with a straight coat and turtleneck sweater looks so delicious. Gao Yuanyuan couldn't help but kiss Chen Lian on the face again, and then trotted out to find Li Dabai. Chen Lian took a look at the small mirror placed on Myron's desk and felt relieved when he found nothing wrong. Fortunately, Gao Yuanyuan didn't wear lipstick today, otherwise she would have to tidy up. Li Dabai came over after a while, and he was talking and laughing with Gao Yuanyuan, as if his previous anger was an illusion. Chen Lian somewhat admired Gao Yuanyuan's communication skills, but it was also Li Dabai's character that was somewhat simple and kind, otherwise he would have definitely broken up with Gao Yuanyuan. How's it going over there? Chen Lian looked at Li Dabai and asked. Mr. Er Chiao is already being interviewed by reporters. Li Dabai quickly adjusted to work status, looked at Chen Lian and said, just now, Southern Weekly and Renming Daily approached me individually to interview you. Okay, you can arrange it so that they are staggered, and I will be interviewed in the office. Okay, let's make arrangements right away. Can you do it in 10 minutes? Can. After Li Dabai went out again, Chen Lian looked at Gao Yuanyuan who was doing nothing and said, I'll be busy later, you can go and play by yourself. Oh, then I'm leaving. Gao Yuanyuan puffed her lips, looked at Chen Lian reluctantly, and then left the office. When Chen Lian was the only one left in the office, the phone on his desk rang suddenly. Chen Lian reached out and picked it up. It was Beauty Chen on the other end of the phone. Chen Lian chatted with her for a few words and then hung up. Then he couldn't help shaking his head and even called the office. Isn't this just a disguised inspection? Soon a reporter from Renmin Daily arrived, and Chen Lian put aside those messy thoughts and seriously began to answer the reporter's questions. After more than half an hour, the reporter from Renmin Daily ended the interview, and then the reporter from Southern Weekly came in again. There is a clear difference between Nanfang Weekly and Renming Daily. The style is more free and less rigid. The whole interview process is still very relaxed. This time, Chen Lian chatted with the Southern Weekly reporter for more than an hour before it ended. Southern Weekly is a magazine, so they talked about more and more complicated issues, such as character interviews rather than simple interviews about King Biao. After Chen Lian saw off the Southern Weekly reporter, he discovered that Jiao Linmu's side was also over. At this time, he was sitting there chatting with Li Dabai. Gao Yuanyuan was sitting and listening like a little girl next door, interjecting from time to time. One sentence made Jiao Linmu laugh. Chen Lian walked over and said with a smile, "What are you talking about? I'm so happy that I haven't eaten yet. Let's go have lunch together. I've been waiting for you, let's go, I'll treat you at noon." Jiao Linmu stood up and said with a smile. After eating together at noon, they separated. Li Dabai wanted to go back to the company to keep an eye on her, Gao Yuanyuan wanted to go back to school, Chen Lian and Huo Jiankai made an appointment to meet, and Jiao Linmu bought a bunch of things to see Chen Myron. If Chen Lian hadn't taken the photo of King Biao, Jiao Linmu wouldn't have been so happy to find someone to blame. Who knows if Chen Myron's parents are easy to talk to. After Chen Lian and Huo Jiankai met at a coffee shop in Xinjiaikao, they found that he was bringing someone else with him, and felt a little confused as to why he was looking for him. If you just want him to play the male lead in a singer, just bring the revised script. The person who came with Huo Jiankai had his back turned to Chen Lian, and he didn't recognize who it was. After walking over to say hello to Huo Jiankai, he glanced at the person sitting opposite and felt a little surprised. Huo Jiankai really found Su Cheng. Could it be that this old boy didn't change the script and wanted to use a honey trap? However, Su Cheng's appearance is indeed in line with Chen Lian's aesthetics, and her figure is also very good. Chen Lian remembered Su Cheng the moment he saw Su Cheng. Young Su Cheng still has some baby fat. Her round face looks cute, but she has a good figure. However, she is wearing a coat and sitting down, which does not show off her figure. Su Cheng looked at Chen Lian, stood up, stretched out her hand and said with a smile, "Hello, I'm Su Cheng, nice to meet you." Chen Lian also stretched out his hand and said politely, "Hello." I have some understanding of Su Cheng and Chen Lian. His family background is very good, his parents are relatively powerful, and he has a much stronger family background than Chen Lian. His father is General He's bodyguard, and his mother is the captain of the general administration's dance team. But compared with Chen Myren, it is a little worse. However, Chen Myren's grandfather has passed away for several years, so it is not easy to compare with Su Cheng. Chen Lian actually couldn't understand why the second and third generations of them entered the entertainment industry. Even if their parents became marginalized figures, they would not want to wade into the muddy waters of the entertainment industry. After the three of them sat down, Huo Jiankai took the initiative and said with a smile, "Lian, didn't you recommend Su Cheng to play that role last time? I spent a lot of effort to recruit her." Chen Lian had a smile on his face, but he couldn't help scolding Huo Jiankai in his heart. When did he recommend it? It was just a word of mouth. However, in front of Su Cheng, Chen Lian naturally would not show it. He looked at her and said, "Director Huo is joking. Actually, Director Huo thinks you are suitable for that role. I am just a young actor and I don't have the ability to make decisions for him." Su Cheng smiled and said, "If you are a young actor, then who am I? But thank you for recommending me. It's just that this role is not very important." Su Cheng was not very interested in it originally. If Huo Jiankai hadn't just won the award this year and the starring role was Chen Lian, she wouldn't have considered it. Su Cheng is mainly curious about Chen Lian. She has always heard about various gossips and stories in this industry, and she has long wanted to meet him and get to know him. Huo Jiankai smiled and said, "Don't be so polite, let's have some tea." Chen Lian picked up the teacup and took a sip, looked at Huo Jiankai and asked, "Have you changed the script? If it hasn't been changed, I won't act." Changed it, Huo Jiankai quickly took out the script and handed it to Chen Lian and said, "You've already told me, how can I not change it? Every time you look down on my script, my wife has said that I will see you next time. I have to give you a good look." Chen Lian, I feel sorry for my sister-in-law, but it's not his fault. Why did you write the script poorly? Su Cheng became a little curious after hearing this. From what Huo Jiankai meant, Chen Lian was still a drama tyrant. Like to change the script? Chen Lian glanced at Su Cheng, then turned over the script and said, "Director Huo, you have wronged me. I was just giving my opinion, and this was before I took the role, so I didn't threaten you." Huo Jiankai laughed and said, "The main thing is that the questions you raise are correct every time. Doesn't this mean that my wife's writing is not good? I have suffered for you." Chen Lian rolled his eyes and was too lazy to argue with Huo Jiankai. "What do you mean by taking it for me? Don't say something so easily misunderstood." After roughly reading the script, Chen Lian felt that it was much better than before, and it could meet his requirements. However, there is still a question that needs to be confirmed, whether to act or not. Chen Lian looked at Huo Jiankai and asked, "When are you going to start shooting?" "I will participate in the Sino-Japanese art exchange next year and participate in art exhibitions, so time is tight. Start shooting in the spring, and the filming can be completed in 2 months at most," Huo Jiankai said immediately, turning to Su Cheng and said, Su Qing also has a schedule after the spring of next year. Chen Lian thought for a moment and said, let me think about it and give you an answer in a few days. No problem, Huo Jiankai smiled, and then said a little embarrassedly, but I have something to ask you for help. What's the matter? Chen Lian looked at the squirming Huo Jiankai and said with a smile, if our relationship can help, I will definitely help. Hearing Chen Lian's words, Huo Jiankai immediately smiled and said, you can definitely help. I don't have enough money to invest in asking you to beg for help. Chen Lian. Sure enough, he was targeted as soon as he showed his wealth. Fortunately, it was Huo Jiankai. Chen Lian would have had a headache if he was specifically targeting those people on the pig-killing list. How much difference do you have? Huo Jiankai smiled sheepishly and said, not much, only 1.5 million. 1.5 million is not much. Chen Lian looked at Huo Jiankai helplessly and said, you are short of so much money, why did you even think about setting up a movie project? However, the revised script is indeed worthy of Chen Lian's investment. Although it is unlikely to be a big hit, there should be no problem in recovering the cost. Investment can be invested. Huo Jiankai even found Su Cheng. This alone is worth Chen Lian's investment. After Chen Lian thought about it for a moment, he nodded and said, no problem, I agree to the investment. I will invest whether I act or not. After hearing Chen Lian's promise, Huo Jiankai immediately laughed. It was great to meet a rich friend. Su Qing, who was sitting opposite, glanced at Chen Lian and felt nothing special in her heart. She could spend more than 2 billion in advertising fees, so more than 1 million was nothing. But seeing Chen Lian decide to invest more than 1 million without any ink, Su Qing still felt that he was decisive. Most people who make movies these days are losing money, but being able to invest more than 1 million without blinking an eye is really attractive with such a heroic look. When are men most attractive? Of course it's time to spend money. Chen Lian's young and handsome appearance coupled with his achievements in art made Su Qing's favorability towards him increase. Female stars in the entertainment industry just like 3 types of men, talented, rich, and handsome. It just so happened that Chen Lian had all of these, which was like maxing out his charm points. Su Qing's eyes flickered, she looked at Chen Lian and asked deliberately, aren't you worried about losing money? Huo Jiankai, Princess Su, do you speak like that? Chen Lian smiled and said, Director Huo is my friend. Besides, more than 1 million is not much. It doesn't matter if you lose it. You can make it back in a few days. Huo Jiankai, Su Qing, He's so good at pretending, he made more than 1 million in just a few days. But when they thought about what Chen Lian said in front of the CCTV cameras yesterday, that 280 million yuan to bid for the title was so cheap, they immediately felt that maybe he was not just pretending, but really could earn more than 1 million yuan in a few days. This was the first time Su Qing saw someone talking like this. Although she thought it was a bit exaggerated, it still made people envious and yearned for her. It's nice to have money. After Chen Lian and Huo Jiankai chatted for a while, he took the initiative and said, Director Huo, that's it for today. I have something to do later, so I'll treat you to dinner later. Okay, go about your business. Huo Jiankai could understand and didn't think that Chen Lian was doing it on purpose. After all, he was a man who could make millions in a few days, so it would be strange if he wasn't busy. When Chen Lian was about to leave with the script, Su Qing, who was sitting opposite, took the initiative and said, What's your phone number? Chen Lian was stunned for a moment, took out a business card from his pocket and handed it to him and said, This is my business card. Su Qing took it and took a look, and found that there were only 3 gilded characters on it, Chen Lian, and a series of numbers. Su Qing looked at Chen Lian and stretched out his hand and said, Give me 2 more, I'm afraid I'll lose them. You can save it directly to your phone. Although Chen Lian was complaining in his heart, he still took out 2 business cards and gave them to Su Ching. Su Ching took the business card, slipped her finger on Chen Lian's palm intentionally or unintentionally, then took out a pen from her bag, wrote her number on one of Chen Lian's business cards and returned it to Chen Lian. "This is my phone number. Remember to call me when you have time." Su Ching's slender fingers pressed on Chen Lian's palm. Although there was a business card between them, the two of them seemed to be electrocuted. Their eyes met and then separated immediately. The moment their eyes collided, Chen Lian felt that what he was holding was not a business card, but a seal. "I really want to try stamping Su Ching's body." Code character fell asleep. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 284. Chapter 274-272. Do you have any misunderstanding about my financial strength? In the quiet cafe, Chen Lian looked at the business card in his hand and was stunned for a moment. This was the first time that he had given out a business card and had it sent back. However, seeing the string of numbers on the business card, Chen Lian put it away, looked at Su Ching and Huo Jiandian, nodded, and then left the cafe. Watching Chen Lian leave, Su Ching couldn't help but cast her eyes on his slender legs, then turned to look at Huo Jiankai and asked, "Director Huo, is he really in good shape?" Huo Jiankai was stunned for a moment, not expecting Su Ching to ask this question, but he still nodded and said, "Yes, it is no different from professional sports." "Athletes don't have such pretty faces," Su Ching muttered, then looked at Huo Jiankai and said, "Then I'll wait for the camera to start. It's my first time to work with Director Huo. I hope we can have a pleasant cooperation." Huo Jiankai showed a smile and said, "Happy cooperation." Spending more than 1 million yuan more to meet a friend didn't make Chen Lian feel bad at all, but he was just a little worried that such things might continue to happen in the future. Chen Lian thought that Zhang Kuilai was also looking for him, and Bewley probably wanted to invest, but the Kangxi drama hadn't been sold yet, so he became a little anxious. Chen Lian thought for a while but still didn't go to meet Zhang Kuilai. He still remembered the last corruption incident. But besides Zhang Kuilai, there are many people who want to find Chen Lian. Not to mention those older sisters, many directors in the industry also want to find Chen Lian. There is such a big financier in the circle. Who wouldn't want to try his luck? It would be great if he gets investment. It's not easy to make movies these days. Too many movies don't get official support. Movie studios can't afford the labels, and they can't pass the review. They can only look for private capital to invest. But for movies that can't be released, you need to find people to invest. It's just too difficult. What businessmen pay attention to when investing is returns. No one will waste their own money. Except for those who love the film industry, who would be willing to spend their own money to make a movie that has no returns. Even if everyone is willing, there is still a very real problem, that is, if the number on the passbook is not willing, it is useless no matter how willing you are if you don't have money. There are many people who can raise their own money to make movies. Jia Zhang is one of them. He will graduate next year and is currently raising money to make a movie. But raising money is not that easy. Jia Zhang was worried about whether he should go home and ask for money, but there was a high probability that he would not be able to do so. His father originally wanted him to go home and open a butcher shop. Jia Zhang was sitting in the dormitory and discussing with some of his classmates where to get more money. Wang Hongwei frowned and said, "How about asking Yu Liwei to ask again?" "There's nothing he can do." Jia Zhang shook his head, thought for a while and said, "Let me think about who else to turn to." Gu Lin leaned on the bed and looked at the ceiling and said, "I heard that the graduation works of the directing department next door have been finalized and are about to start shooting. The directing department is the privileged class. Our literature department is destined to watch movies. It's so difficult to make movies with our own money. Gulin's words resonated with Wang Hongwei, and he couldn't help but sigh. Jia Zhang smoked and said nothing. The small dormitory was filled with smoke. After extinguishing the cigarette butt a little irritably, Jia Zhang's eyes fell on a newspaper on the table that was brought by someone unknown. Looking at the face above, only half of which was exposed, Jia Zhang suddenly remembered something and ran to his desk to flip through it. What are you looking for? The manuscript can't be found again. Wang Hongwei looked at Jia Zhang and asked curiously. Jia Zhang didn't reply. He just lowered his head and rummaged around on the table. Finally, he found a business card in the corner of the drawer. Then he excitedly turned his head to look at them and said, "Found it." Wang Hongwei looked over curiously and asked, "What is it?" "Business card?" "Whose is it?" "His," Jia Zhang pointed, and Wang Hongwei and Gulin's eyes fell on the newspaper on the table. The photo in the newspaper failed to attract the attention of Wang Hongwei and Gulin, but the title attracted the attention of these two poor men who wanted to rob the bidding king of 280 million. Wang Hongwei and Gulin looked at each other at the same time, then sat up and turned to look at Jia Zhang and said, "Chen Lian. Is this his business card?" At this time, Wang Hongwei suddenly remembered something, looked at Jia Zhang and said, "I remember when Hong He came to the school to promote, he chatted with you for a long time." "Yes, at that time he also said that if you want to make a movie in the future, you can contact him." Jia Zhang held the business card and was a little excited, not because Chen Lian, a junior student, became a rich man through exchanges, but because he saw the hope that the movie could continue smoothly. Wang Hongwei couldn't help but scratch his hair and said, "I was still wondering why he chatted with you for so long, but now there seems to be hope. Lao Jia, please give him a call." Jia Zhang hummed, but then looked at them and said, "How much do you think I should ask for?" 5 or 80,000, Wang Hongwei said with some uncertainty. "Now there are 160,000, and another 70 or 80,000 will be enough." Gulin said a little anxiously at this time, "Silly. Order more. I want 200,000. "Is it too much?" Jia Zhang asked uncertainly. "A few people may have been calculating their budgets for a long time, and they don't even dare to make big investments. 200,000 is only about 10% of the production cost of a standard movie produced by a film studio now. The scene is bigger and the actors are bigger. $1 million can't even make a splash." Gulin said helplessly, "He already took advantage of several hundred million, but it's more than 200,000. "Yes, but I don't know if he will be willing." Jia Zhang held the business card and felt a little embarrassed and said, "I haven't even written the script yet. Just try it, just in case it works. It's really hard to like the winter in Beijing. The wind is too strong and the air is too dry." As soon as Chen Lian came out of the cafe, he couldn't help but wrap up his clothes tightly, finish the things at hand early, and then go to Japan for a soak spa. After Chen Lian stopped a taxi and gave his address, he felt that it was too troublesome to take a taxi. Why hadn't Li Dabai found a new assistant for him? It was too slow. When you have so much money and you don't even have a driver, you have to take a taxi when you go out? No one would believe me if I told you. Chen Lian was about to call Li Dabai to urge his assistant when his cell phone rang. Looking at this unfamiliar number, Chen Lian hung up without thinking. Some reporter must have gotten his number out of nowhere. After hanging up the phone, Chen Lian muttered, "This number is going to be changed. I still have to hide for the past 2 days." Nortel's Jia Zhang was stunned for a moment when he heard the busy tone on the other end of the phone. Wang Hongwei and Gulin looked at his expression and immediately asked, "What's going on? What's your expression?" "He hung up on me and didn't answer the call," Jia Zhang said helplessly after hanging up the phone. Gulin was the first to react and said, "Try again later. Maybe this will be inconvenient for others." Jiazank nodded, then sighed, and said, "It's really difficult. Who told us that we are from the literature department, and we are all ordinary people?" Gulin was a little cynical. Maybe he had seen too many students from the directing department being able to make movies easily, and there were so many second and third generation students. This world has always been divided. Most small people are marginalized in society, and they are also marginalized in this film school. In the evening, Jiazank called Chen Lian again. On the other side, Chen Lian, who was drawing in the study, heard the phone ringing and shouted outside, "Bring me the phone." "Coming." Mr. Zhou came out of the bathroom wiping his hair, picked up the phone on the coffee table in the living room, took a look at it, then walked into the study and handed it to Chen Lian. Chen Lian took the phone and looked at the unfamiliar number on it before hesitating and connected. As soon as he connected, he heard a slightly awkward voice with an accent. "Hello, junior fellow student, I am Jiazank." Chen Lian had never heard the title junior student a few times, but he realized that the person opposite him was really his senior, so he was a little curious as to why he called him. "It turns out to be senior, what do you want from me?" Chen Lian didn't mention the phone call that was hung up in the afternoon, so as not to have to explain why he didn't answer it. Jiazank coughed lightly and said, "Are you free tonight? I want to treat you to a meal, and I have something to ask you for help." Chen Lian glanced at Mr. Zhou, who was wiping his hair. He did not agree immediately, but asked, "What is the matter with me, senior?" Jiazank on the other end of the phone hesitated for a moment, feeling that it would be better to talk about this kind of thing in person. However, even though Chen Lian asked, he still said directly, "I want to make a movie and want your help." Chen Lian probably understood what Jiazank was looking for. It was definitely not looking for him to act, but most likely looking for him to invest. So he asked directly, "Senior, is he short of money?" "Yes." After Jiazank said this, he breathed a sigh of relief. This was his first time asking for money, and he felt a little bit reluctant to let go. "How much do you need?" Jiazank was about to say the 200,000 yuan that was discussed in the afternoon, but he didn't feel like we had met to talk. He was afraid that Chen Lian would refuse, so he changed his words, 100,000 yuan is enough." Chen Lian was stunned for a moment and asked curiously, 100,000 yuan is enough? How much money do you have now? 150,000, Jiazank said with some embarrassment. This number sounded unreliable. How could one make a movie with 150,000? As if worried that Chen Lian would find it unreliable, Jiazank immediately added, "I have no plans to hire professional actors, and the crew is all our own, so more than 200,000 yuan is enough." Chen Lian didn't think it was unreliable. Wang Xiaohui didn't have so much money when he filmed Extreme Cold. Sixth-generation directors were never rich at this time. Not hearing Chen Lian's answer, Jiazank's hope sank a little. It must be unreliable. A group of people from the literature department are going to make a movie and only have hundreds of thousands of dollars. Anyone would think it is unreliable. Jiazank thought about Chen Lian's previous suggestion that if he had no money to make a movie, he could contact him. Now that he thought about it, it was most likely that he was just talking politely. But Chen Lian's voice soon came from the other end of the phone, dispelling Jiazank's doubts. "No problem, but is 100,000 yuan too little?" Chen Lian asked while holding the phone. Jiazank didn't expect that Chen Lian was willing to invest and was willing to invest more. He immediately became happy, hesitated for a while and said sheepishly, "Actually, I originally wanted to say 200,000, but I don't have to worry too much." "Chen Lian, old Chia, do you have any misunderstanding about my financial strength? Then it's 200,000. I'll find someone to send it to you tomorrow. Are you still in school?" "Yes." "Don't you ask about the specific situation of the movie? This movie may not be released." Jia Zhang was a little surprised by Chen Lian's generosity. He also felt a little embarrassed to accept Chen Lian's investment. He felt that he only invested in it because of his alumni. This movie would most likely not make money. He wanted to make it clear to Chen Lian so as not to end up with it. It will make him regret it. No, I believe senior, your previous short film was very good. Chen Lian smiled and said, and I have made so many movies, but only 2 have been released in China. Jia Zhang knew these things and felt that Chen Lian and he should be the same kind of people, both of whom love movies, so he said, I can't guarantee whether movies can make money, but I can guarantee that this is a sincere attempt by a group of people who love movies. Haha, I believe in you, senior. If it weren't for my frequent absence from school, I would have joined your film group. The 2 chatted for a few more words before hanging up the phone. Chen Lian couldn't help but shake his head. Jia Zhang misunderstood his financial strength and his own talent. How could Xiao Wu lose money? You, Mr. Jia, took off by relying on the money earned from this movie. Chen Lian is not doing it to make money, but mainly to give Lao Jia some face. He still likes his movies. Although he shoots some underground movies and the subject matter is too sensitive, he cannot deny that he is a good director. What movie only costs 200,000 yuan? Mr. Zhou asked curiously, putting down the towel in his hand. An independent movie. After Chen Lian finished speaking, something suddenly occurred to him. He looked at Mr. Zhou and said, are you interested in giving it a try? This is a good movie. Mr. Zhou stepped forward and hugged Chen Lian. His eyes were full of spring, and he wrinkled his delicate nose and said, I just came back from filming, and you want me to go out to film without disturbing you and other women. Chen Lian, How dare you slander yourself like this? You must be punished tonight. Hang up. Chen Lian picked up young Master Zhou and walked to the bedroom, letting young Master Zhou kiss him on the face. Mr. Zhou's slender calves were swaying in the air, but they could no longer sway after entering the bedroom. The red rope was wrapped around the slender ankles and wrapped several times around the body to form a beautiful knot. Mr. Zhou looked at Chen Lian with a blushing face, not because he was shy, but because he hadn't been like this for a long time. This familiar tight feeling made her very excited. Chen Lian looked at his craftsmanship and nodded with satisfaction. The combination of open leg binding and hanging binding is really good. Complete 1 chapter first, and another chapter before 9 o'clock. Asking for votes. Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 285. Chapter 275-273. Talking Xiaoming and Dumb Laoxia. In the warm bedroom, Chen Lian rubbed Mr. Zhou's red ankles and looked at the marks on her waist, feeling a little regretful that it took too long just now. Mr. Zhou lay there staring at the ceiling with his eyes blankly. After a while, he came back to his senses, touched the corners of his wet mouth, turned his head to look at Chen Lian, and couldn't help but take his feet out of his hands and kick them. Hit him. The soft kick had no power at all. It was more of a kick than a tease. The hook when the toes were retracted was very technical. Anyway, Chen Lian felt that he was skilled. Mr. Zhou also felt it. He stood up and took a look. He groaned and put his foot on Chen Lian's lap. He stepped on it with his little foot and said, I'll pinch you again. I'll punish you later. Chen Lian, does she have any misunderstanding about punishment? But how can you pinch me when you step on me like this? I don't know how much time passed, Mr. Zhou said to Chen Lian while wiping the delicate and rosy insteps, what are your plans later? Not yet. I'm going to Xiangjiang in a few days to deal with the finishing work of the art space. Chen Lian moved to Mr. Zhou's side and motioned for her to wipe him too. Mr. Zhou first slapped him in the face, then picked up the towel and wiped it while asking, are you coming back on New Year's Day? Chen Lian suddenly thought of Myron Chen, paused and said, not necessarily, by the way, Did you see the house I showed you last time? I saw it, but now I want to change to a bigger one. Mr. Joe threw the towel aside and leaned on Chen Lian and said, and I also want to buy the original house. Chen Lian looked at young Master Joe biting his lip and smiling, pinched her face and said, no problem, just tell me if you're careful. I like this feeling so much. Mr. Joe bit Chen Lian's chin, looked at it and said, why are you so nice to me? Because I am a scumbag. Chen Lian felt a little sad and despised himself in his heart. Mr. Joe was the first woman he almost fell in love with. If he had invested more in her, maybe he would not be a scumbag. After the two of them chatted for a while, Chen Lian remembered what he had not finished saying before and said to Mr. Joe, the movie I just told you is really good. You can go see it tomorrow and have a chat with Lao Xia. Old Xia? Is that your senior? Mr. Joe thought for a moment and said, then when will he turn on the phone? I have just finished filming and want to rest for a few more days. Chen Lian thought for a moment and said, it will probably be in the spring next year. Mr. Joe nodded and said, okay, then I'll go take a look tomorrow. Well, help me take the money to him by the way, Chen Lian said to Mr. Joe with a smile, just in time to experience the joy of investing. What's so good about investors? Mr. Joe turned over and looked at the ceiling and said briskly, I just like the feeling of acting. Every time I act, I feel that I have forgotten everything. I am very comfortable and happy. Chen Lian understood the feeling Mr. Joe was talking about. He felt the same way when he was painting. It might seem boring to others, but for him the process was very enjoyable. Mr. Joe and Chen Lian are actually very similar, which may be why Chen Lian almost fell in love with her in the first place. He may have fallen in love with her now, but this cannot hide the fact that Chen Lian is a scumbag. He thought that he would stop after falling in love with someone, but he forgot one sentence, how can a cat not steal something? Early the next morning, Chen Lian and Mr. Joe went to the bank together. First, they reopened the account and transferred the 200,000 that Jia Zhang needed, and second, they gave Mr. Joe some pocket money. More than half an hour later, the two came out of the bank. Mr. Joe couldn't help but turn to look at Chen Lian while looking at the bank book in his hand and said, I suddenly have so much money, I don't even know how to spend it. After hearing this, Chen Lian paused and said, actually, I'm not very good at spending money either. Well, I don't know who spent more than 200 million in one go. Mr. Joe put his bank book in his pocket, hugged Chen Lian's arm and said with a smile, there is no one in China who spends more money than you. Chen Lian said speechlessly, that is the development of the company, which is different from normal consumption. I have bought myself a house and a car now. Speaking of cars, Mr. Joe said angrily, why do you buy a car? You don't want to learn it yourself, and you don't want to find a driver. Chen Lian got angry when he mentioned this. Li Dabai's efficiency was too low. It had been so long since he could not find an assistant. Li Dabai, who was busy in the company, was also very helpless. Chen Myron was at home with her childbirth, so she could only keep an eye on the company. She also served as Chen Lian's assistant to help him deal with reporters and people seeking investment. Fang talks about cooperation, but there is no time to find an assistant for Chen Lian. Being able to get off work on time is now a luxury. When Li Dabai had some free time at noon, he flipped through the pile of job application forms in front of him, looked at the ID photos on them, and threw them all aside with disgust. As Chen Lian's assistant, it's not enough if his looks are not good enough. It would be too shameful to take him out. Li Dabai thought of the previous secretaries of Party A's boss, and thought that Chen Lian's assistants must not be worse than those nouveau riche, otherwise they would be too shameless. However, Li Dabai really didn't see any suitable photos of these job seekers, and he didn't know if it was because he had been with Chen Lian for a long time and saw too many beauties, so his requirements had become higher. While flipping through the pages, Li Dabai thought of Gao Yuan, and he hummed in his heart, thinking that he must find an obedient assistant to help her keep an eye on Gao Yuan in the future. On the Nortel campus, Chen Lian and Mr. Zhou came together. They originally wanted to let Mr. Zhou come by himself, but they were worried that Lao Jiao would not be able to speak well. It's been a long time since I've been to school. Chen Lian feels that nothing has changed here. Except that many of the trees in the school are bald, it's no different from the last time he came here. Chen Lian easily attracts people's attention when he walks on campus. The newspapers these days are full of news about Chen Lian. Even the freshmen know the senior who has never appeared in school. But few people dared to come up and talk to him. As soon as they saw Chen Lian, a sentence popped into their heads. 280 million is not expensive. Out of awe of money, these ignorant students naturally had some awe of Chen Lian. But he is not without courage. After Huang Xiaoming saw Chen Lian sitting on the edge of the basketball court, he was eager to come and get to know him, but he didn't know how to strike up a conversation. Xiaoming, come and replace me. On the court, Chen Kun watched Huang Xiaoming sitting there for a long time and wanted him to come up and play for a while. People on Chen Kun's team immediately shouted, "Stop, Xiaoming can't even get a rebound." Huang Xiaoming glanced at them with black lines on his head, and then said to Chen Kun, "You can play, I have to leave first." When Chen Kun called him just now, he suddenly thought of Li Xiaoran. Maybe this was an opportunity to talk to Chen Lian. Huang Xiaoming saw Chen Lian who was about to walk away and immediately chased after him. When he ran next to him, he deliberately let out a sigh, then stopped and shouted, "Senior." Chen Lian glanced at him and deliberately pretended not to recognize him and asked, "Hello, who are you?" "Hello, Senior, I am Li Xiaoran's friend. Last time she came to school with you, she saw you from a distance." Huang Xiaoming smiled sheepishly when he said this and said, "At that time, Xiaoran also said that there was a chance to introduce. I'm here to introduce you to him. I really like your acting." Li Xiaoran? When Chen Lian heard the name, he was stunned for a moment before he realized that Huang Xiaoming was talking about Li Dabai. "I was called so many nicknames that I almost forgot Dabai's name." "Oh, Dabai's friend, are you Chen Kun?" "You are as handsome as Dabai," said Chen Lian said in a malicious tone. A hint of embarrassment appeared on Huang Xiaoming's face. He scratched his head and said, "I'm not Chen Kun, my name is Huang Xiaoming, I'm in the freshman performance class." Chen Lian couldn't help but smile, looked at Huang Xiaoming and said, "Sorry, I made a mistake." Mr. Zhou has been standing nearby. She could see that Chen Lian's eyes were narrowed just now. Although she didn't know what kind of prank Chen Lian was playing, she couldn't help but shook her head. He was so old, but sometimes he was still like a child. "Okay, let's talk about it later. I guess Jiazank is getting impatient," Mr. Zhou said, pulling Chen Lian's hand. Chen Lian then smiled and said to Huang Xiaoming, "Xiaoming, I still have something to do. Let's talk next time. This time I know who you are." "Oh, okay, Senior, you are busy." Huang Xiaoming nodded hurriedly. Chen Lian smiled at him before leaving with Mr. Zhou. Huang Xiaoming stood there and vaguely heard Mr. Zhou complaining about Chen Lian's bad taste like a child. Huang Xiaoming scratched his hair and didn't know what she meant. "What are you doing here?" Yanzi suddenly patted Huang Xiaoming from behind, then said with a smile, "They won't take you to play ball." Huang Xiaoming, "If we don't talk about this, you are still my goddess." However, Yanzi had already followed Huang Xiaoming's gaze and recognized the tall figure from behind as Chen Lian at a glance. Don't ask how they met. Yanzi wouldn't say that his dormitory is full of Chen Lian's newspapers, magazines, and posters. But there seems to be nothing that can't be said. Every dormitory in the girls' dormitory is the same. As long as there are reports about Chen Lian, the newspapers and magazines about Chen Lian at the school gate will be sold out the next day. This is the power of the Nortel male god. What kind of Hong Kong and Taiwan male stars are you chasing after? It's not as convenient as chasing your own seniors. Hong Kong and Taiwan male stars are not as good as our own seniors. After a while, Chen Lian and Mr. Zhou met Jia Zhang in a classroom. It seemed to be a classroom in the literature department, with books piled inside. Seeing Chen Lian's appearance, Jia Zhang and others stood up immediately. They didn't know what to say when they opened their mouths. They were all a bit taciturn. Gu Lin, the only outgoing person, took the initiative and said, "Hello, junior fellow student." Gu Lin wanted to slap himself twice when he heard his junior shouting like a senior. Seeing that they were a little embarrassed, Chen Lian took the initiative to say hello with a smile. "Seniors, you must have been waiting for a long time. I'm sorry for being late." After Chen Lian finished speaking, he looked at Jia Zhang and said, "Senior, long time no see. Let me introduce to you. This is my friend Mr. Zhou, a very good actor." Jia Zhang nodded with a smile, glanced at Mr. Zhou next to him, and vaguely guessed why Chen Lian brought him here. Wang Hongwei and Gu Lin also looked at each other and guessed Chen Lian's plan at the same time. They sighed inwardly and knew that the 200,000 yuan was not so easy to get. Chen Lian didn't explain that much. Although Lao Jia likes to use non-professional actors, he doesn't insist on not using professional actors. What's more, in the movie Xiao Wu, the heroine is originally a professional actor, so why can't she be Mr. Zhou? After all, it is a film that can win international awards. It is good for Mr. Zhou to brush up his resume in advance. Chen Lian looked at Jia Zhang and said, "Senior, the investment was agreed upon yesterday. I have already brought 200,000 yuan, but I also want to recommend an actor to you." Jia Zhang glanced at Chen Lian with some embarrassment and hesitated for a while before saying, "But I have already promised others. If you want to exchange investment for a role, then I don't want it." Hearing Jia Zhang's words, although Wang Hongwei and Gu Lin felt pity in their hearts, they did not stop them. They knew best what kind of person Jia Zhang was and how much effort he put into this movie. Chen Lian was a little surprised. Lao Jia spoke too directly. "Although I know that he is from Shaanxi and is loyal, you should be more tactful when dealing with investors. However, this role cannot be escaped. The current heroine dislikes Jia Zhang, a member of the grassroots team, and even made a fuss about abandoning the role before the film was started." Chen Lian didn't want to force Jia Zhang with money. That would be useless. It would be better to wait for him to feel weak and then come back to him. Mr. Zhou also felt a little embarrassed at this time. "Why don't you try it on and pretend for a while before rejecting it?" Chen Lian turned to look at Mr. Zhou and said, "Where is the bank book? Give it to the senior. He has already found an actor, so we won't force it." Mr. Zhou glanced at Jia Zhang. Although he was unhappy, he still took out his bank book and handed it to him. As an actor, she actually admired Jia Zhang. It's rare to find a director who can stick to his true intentions, and he's such a poor director. Everyone is looking for money these days. Jia Zhang looked at Chen Lian in surprise and asked, "Are you still willing to invest?" "Yes, why don't you want to?" "I said it was a recommendation," Chen Lian said with a smile. "However, what the senior just said was too direct. Mr. Zhou is a very good actor, so it is your loss." Jia Zhang looked at the bank book in Mr. Zhou's hand, and felt a flash of guilt in his heart. He seemed to have misunderstood Chen Lian, and even refused in front of the girl. Gu Lin came out to smooth things over and said with a smile, "Lao Jia speaks frankly, don't worry, he also values friendship, otherwise we wouldn't make a movie with him." Mr. Zhou didn't say anything, he just put the bank book and contract in front of Jia Zhang and said, "The password is 123,456. I hope to have the opportunity to cooperate with you in the future." Chen Lian didn't say anything, and just kept looking at Jia Zhang, with a smile on his face but eyes that seemed full of oppression and urging. Jia Zhang was silent for a moment, then looked at young Master Zhou and said, "I'm sorry, I was too blunt just now. I promised someone else before. I don't dislike your acting skills. I have watched you play Red River Valley and your acting skills are very good. After hearing what Jia Zhang said, Chen Lian saw a look of relief on Mr. Zhou's face and said to Jia Zhang, "Senior, then this matter is settled. I wish you a smooth filming." After Jia Zhang read and signed the contract, Chen Lian greeted them one by one and turned around to leave. However, when he walked to the door, he looked back at Jia Zhang and said, "Senior, I suggest you ask the actor. See if she is willing to act. I respect your enthusiasm for movies, but others may not." After speaking, Chen Lian and Mr. Zhou left without waiting for Jia Zhang's reply. After the three people in the classroom looked at each other, they were all a little confused and didn't understand what Chen Lian's last sentence meant. You want to say a threat, the money was given and the contract was signed, but what does the last sentence mean? Mr. Zhou outside the classroom was also curious. He looked at Chen Lian and asked, "What did you mean by what you just said? It's not interesting. It just means that this role is still yours. Just wait." Second update, there are 2 more chapters tonight. Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 286. Chapter 276-274. The War Between Two Girls. The 6th generation directors are a very special group. Chen Lian has come into contact with several of them, but Jia Zhang is the one who catches Chen's eye the most. Wang Xiao's Hawaii is not that pure, and Zhang Yuan has too many personal touches. In comparison, Jia Zhang is much better. But really speaking, Chen Lian likes Lu Ye's style more, which always has a sense of blurred dream. It's just that some people like them and some people hate them. They even issued a document prohibiting cooperation with these 6th generation directors. In the rental area for photographic equipment, Jia Zhang and Wang Hongwei looked at the documents posted on the wall and remained silent. The document clearly states that all film production departments are prohibited from cooperating with the 7 gentlemen headed by Zhang Yuan. A photography assistant hired by Jia Zhang smoked a cigarette and looked at the document and said, "I've seen this kind of thing a lot more than a year ago. I was following Wang Xiao's Hawaii when he was filming the extreme cold scene. The very famous Chen Lian, too. I cooperated with them, and when Chen Lian was holding that piece of ice, it looked scary." Jia Zhang and Wang Hongwei glanced at this senior person and were silent for a while before asking about the price of equipment rental. The only good news may be that the rental price of the equipment is within their affordability, and they are even somewhat wealthy after excluding other costs. Chen Lian's 200,000 yuan was timely and life-saving. At this time, Jia Zhang regretted that he had refused so directly. Those who should have a better attitude should not misunderstand that he is using investment to force himself. Chen Lian is also engaged in art and also likes movies. Just like what he said at the end, he respects his enthusiasm for movies, but he has no respect for it. After coming out of the place where the equipment was rented, Jia Zhang and others were not too happy about the wealth of funds, but became silent. Perhaps it was that document that made them feel helpless. Can the movie really not be made? If Chen Lian hears this question, he will tell him that he can film it, but if he does, he will bear the consequences. People still have 2 sides, let alone such a huge society. If you shoot something bad, it deserves encouragement and society needs criticism, but it is not worth showing it to others. Foreigners don't care whether you are living well or not, they should find a way to show it to the people who should see it. Just like the current modern art in China, many artists will continue to criticize and satirize. Chen Lian is also in this category, but he will not only criticize and ignore the good side. In the courtyard of Huguo Temple, Chen Lian's previous wave of sensation in the Beijing art circle is the best example. Social changes have brought great trauma and destruction, but they have also brought more beauty and progress. The good sides cannot be avoided. Chen Lian's behavior may seem moderate, but it is relatively objective. The facts will be shown as they are. I praise the good ones and scold the bad ones. Extreme paranoia is actually the simplest. The films made by sixth-generation directors are not even as gory as those made by documentary directors. On the Nortel campus, Chen Lian and Mr. Zhou, who had not yet left, were strolling around. Looking at the students in groups of 2 and 3, Mr. Zhou said with emotion, "There are so many handsome boys and beauties in your school." Chen Lian smiled and said, "Have you counted Lao Jia and the others?" Mr. Zhou couldn't help but smile when he thought of the faces that looked a little bitter and resentful. The actors are all beautiful, only the director is on the road to ugliness and will never return. Perhaps it is because they are not good looking that they feel the indifference of society. Chen Lian couldn't help but make up the joke in his mind, and suddenly thought that most of the artists seemed not very good looking. It seems that I am really an outlier, in every sense of the word. Strange people always attract more attention and attention. Chen Lian is sometimes troubled. He doesn't know when the news of his coming to school spread, and there are suddenly more people on campus. Many people looked at Chen Lian like a monkey, pointing and almost throwing bananas at him to make him do a backflip. In the girls' dormitory, Zhang Qingqing and Chen Zihan, who knew Chen Lian was coming, were changing clothes and putting on makeup. They were a little annoyed that they shouldn't be so lazy when there was no class. Otherwise, everyone would have rushed out by now. Chen Zihan glanced at Zhang Qingqing, who was still looking for clothes, and immediately sped up her makeup. This time she must be faster than her. "I'm going to file a complaint." Chen Zihan's eyes burned with a strong desire to win. Chen Lian didn't want to wander around the school anymore, so he said to Mr. Zhou, "Let's go. If they continue to look at me like this, I will almost turn into a monkey." Mr. Zhou held back his smile and said, "Who made you so famous? Let's go." Chen Lian and Mr. Zhou quickly walked out of the school gate. As soon as they got in the car, they heard their cell phones ringing. Chen Lian had a bad premonition. He took out his cell phone and saw that it was indeed Li Qiji's call. So he held Mr. Zhou's hand that was twisting the key, picked up the phone and said, "Teacher Li, why did you remember to call me? Why don't you come to my place when you come to school? Come here and I have something to do with you." Li Qiji's voice was a bit reproachful, as if he felt that he, the head teacher, had no sense of existence. Chen Lian had no choice but to say, "I'll be there right away, but Mr. Li, can you tell me first what you want to see me for?" "Oh, it's nothing big. I'm just asking for help from you, the big boss." After chatting for a while and hanging up the phone, Chen Lian looked at Mr. Zhou and said, "It will be very late when the teacher comes to see me. You should go home first." "Okay, I still want to go see the house with you, but it seems I can only go by myself," Mr. Zhou said, a little disappointed. Chen Lian rubbed her head and said, "Go and see for yourself first, see a few more sets, and then we can choose together." Well, that's all it can do. After Mr. Zhou drove away, Chen Lian returned to the school. As soon as he reached the teaching building, he saw Zhang Qingqing and Chen Zihan walking towards each other. Chen Lian thought they were fighting. After watching for a while, he realized that they were just joking and didn't care. After waving to them, he pointed to the window of Li Qiji's office and then went upstairs. Chen Zihan and Zhang Qingqing both understood, and at the same time they let go of each other's hands and snorted. Chen Zihan looked at Zhang Qingqing and said, "It's okay now, there's no need to grab it." Zhang Qingqing turned to look at Chen Zihan and whispered, "Did you just want to file a complaint? Aren't you afraid that I would punish you?" "Punish you? You can conquer my body, but you can't conquer my heart." Chen Zihan snorted and said, "I'll tell Lian later and let him punish you." "Okay, you dare to call the master's name? You're done. Shameless, calling me master even outside." "My pleasure." Pooh. The two women quarreled again downstairs, but neither of them dared to make a loud noise. It looked more like good sisters whispering together. Chen Lian, who went upstairs, listened in Li Keqi's office for a long time before he realized what the so-called OMS were about. The senior year is about to graduate, the students in the directing department are about to finish filming, and the school's funds are relatively tight, so I want to find alumni to support it. Originally, students at the school were not considered, but who made Chen Lian suddenly appear? The newspapers were full of publicity about this young billionaire. Such a rich school can't pretend to be invisible, so it can only send Li Keqi to beg for help. Chen Lian felt like a fat pig now, and everyone passing by wanted to come and cut off a few kilograms of meat. This was the case even before he was on the pig-killing list. If he was on the pig-killing list, it would be even worse. However, Chen Lian would rather be targeted by the pig-killing list. At least he would have countermeasures. At worst, everyone would be finished together. It was hard for him to refuse the favor of the school, but Li Keqi's knife was not big, so Chen Lian could tolerate it. After all, it was his alma mater, and he didn't feel sad if he didn't come to class every day. "Teacher Li, how much does the school need?" Li Keqi took a sip of tea and said, "All the former alumni have hundreds of thousands. You can do whatever you want. The school also has support and subsidies." Chen Lian thought for a moment and said, "Then I'll pay 100,000, as long as the school doesn't think it's too little." "Hey, you have the most, it's too late to have fun." Li Keqi made a joke and then said, "The school is also having a hard time. It didn't even start a business last year because there was no money, and the youth studio is facing reform. If my mother doesn't love me and my uncle doesn't love me, I can only seek help from you." Chen Lian also knew about this situation. Film studios were having a hard time, let alone the youth film studio affiliated with Nortel. 100,000, just 100,000, can be considered as giving back to my alma mater. After talking about business, Li Keqi looked at him and asked, "Will you come to the New Year's Day party in school? Many freshman students said they have never seen you as a senior. They are very curious. Every time I go to class, they ask questions." West. Chen Lian immediately waved his hand and said, "Goodbye, even if I come, I can only be an audience. It's better not to steal the spotlight from the classmates who are performing on stage." "You are really narcissistic." After Li Keqi finished speaking, he couldn't help but nodded, "But you have the capital to be narcissistic." Chen Lian laughed and started chatting with Li Keqi in the office. Zhang Qingqing and Chen Zihan, who were still waiting downstairs, were a little impatient. They gathered together and muttered, "Why do you think old man Li is looking for him?" "I didn't know." "If you don't want to wait, just go back." "Why don't you go back? Wearing a short skirt on such a cold day will freeze you to death. That's better than wearing a low-cut dress." "Humph, X2. The two people became happy enemies at some point, and Chen Lian found it funny when he heard their conversation later. Hearing the laughter behind them, Zhang Qingqing and Chen Zihan both reacted. They turned to look at Chen Lian and then looked at each other. At the same time, they took a quick step and hugged Chen Lian's arm. Chen Lian's arms were hugged and his head hurt. If this was in private, he would definitely be happy, but this was at school, so he had to pay attention to the impact. Chen Lian immediately said, "At school, so many people are watching, please let go." Chen Zihan immediately looked at Zhang Qingqing and said, "I want you to let go." "Let go." Zhang Qingqing originally wanted to let go, but after hearing Chen Zihan's words, she immediately tightened her grip. "First come, first served, do you understand? That's me first." "Okay. Let go," Chen Lian said immediately with a straight face. Zhang Qingqing immediately let go and lowered her head in front of Chen Lian. Chen Zihan also wrung his fingers and did not dare to look at Chen Lian. Chen Lian couldn't help but frown and said, "Pay attention to the influence in school. What do the three of them look like? Chen Zihan grabbed his mouth and glanced at Chen Lian and muttered in a low voice, "That's not in school." "Then you'll know after you try it," Chen Lian snorted, looked at the two of them and said, "Come with me, don't make any more trouble." Oh, Chen Zihan hummed with some disappointment, feeling that Zhang Qingqing had taken away Chen Lian, who was originally only hers at school. Although it was only half of it, she was still unhappy. Zhang Qingqing didn't react at all. Seeing Chen Zihan unhappy made her happy. Half an hour later, in the suite of Kunlun Hotel, Zhang Qingqing and Chen Zihan were sitting awkwardly on the sofa, feeling inexplicably nervous. Chen Lian sat opposite and looked at them with his legs crossed and said, "Why don't we quarrel? Let's have a fight." Chen Zihan raised his head and looked at Chen Lian, who was blushing and seemed to have thought of something. He moved to the other side and said timidly, "I don't want to fight." Zhang Qingqing snorted in her heart, it's true that she can't beat him. Chen Lian saw a hint of pride flash across Zhang Qingqing's face and raised his fingers at her. Zhang Qingqing immediately became a little nervous. If Chen Zihan was not around, she would definitely have gone over obediently and played some master-servant games. But Chen Zihan was still here, and she couldn't let go. She was usually the aggressive one when she was with Chen Zihan. If she was playing a master-servant game with Chen Lian, how would she be able to maintain her image in front of Chen Zihan in the future? Chen Lian looked at Zhang Qingqing, who was sitting still, frowned and was about to speak, when he saw Zhang Qingqing suddenly stood up and said to Chen Zihan, "Let's have a fight." Ah, Chen Zihan was stunned for a moment, and was pushed down by Zhang Qingqing before he could react. Zhang Qingqing rode on Chen Zihan, turned to Chen Lian and said, "Master, I'll hold it down for you, come here quickly." Chen Lian, what kind of magic operation is this? But it looks very exciting. Zhang Qingqing. You're still bullying me. Chen Zihan immediately wanted to resist, turned to look at Chen Lian and said, "Lian bullies me every day. I'm so pitiful, please help me." Chen Lian put down his crossed legs and looked at them with interest. He sat there without any intention of helping anyone. He just wanted to see how Zhang Qingqing usually bullied Chen Zihan. Zhang Qingqing understood Chen Lian's thoughts, snorted and held down Chen Zihan's hand with one hand, raised the other hand and patted it down. The crisp slap and pain immediately reminded Chen Zihan of the fear of being dominated by Zhang Qingqing in the past, and he subconsciously begged for mercy. Host. Before Chen Zihan could shout out, he suddenly realized that Chen Lian was still here. He couldn't shout out, absolutely not. This is the only place where I can beat Zhang Qingqing in front of Chen Lian. It's just a pity that Zhang Qingqing knows her so well, just like Chen Lian knows himself, he knows where she can't resist and enjoys it. Zhang Qingqing looked at Chen Zihan and smiled, then stretched her hand down and pinched it gently. Chen Zihan immediately lost the strength to resist. Chen Lian sat nearby and watched. He had never seen two beauties fight with his own eyes. "How will you join later? I didn't go out with any props today." Chen Lian suddenly felt that his skills were still a bit lacking and he relied too much on props. Chen Lian's eyes glanced around the room, and finally landed on the legs of Zhang Qingqing and Chen Zihan. "It shouldn't hurt to tie the stockings around your neck. It's very elastic and fits well. If you pull it wrongly, it shouldn't break if you pull it." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 287. Chapter 277-275. The actor's strength cannot be wasted. In the quiet hotel room, the air outlet of the central air conditioner continuously delivers heating. The whistling sound in the room is not the sound of the air conditioner or the sound of breathing. Clothes were scattered everywhere on the soft carpet, but Hizzy was nowhere to be seen. There is a white piece of art lying on the big white bed, but the alluring white and red color makes people can't help but think about it. Sitting on the sofa next to the bed, the exquisite, winding, undulating and orderly curves overlap together like a work of art. Jong King's physical strength was better. She turned her head and glanced at Chen Zihan next to her, then raised her weak little hand to grab the hizzy around her neck, as if looking for a sense of superiority. Chen Zihan stared at the ceiling with dull eyes, as if she hadn't recovered yet. Everything she had just experienced made her fly. She suddenly understood why such an arrogant person as Zhang Qingqing liked to play master-servant games with Chen Lian. Especially the scene of master and servant Qing Shen just now made her unable to calm down for a long time, and now she can't help but feel trembling when thinking about it. The sound of rushing water in the bathroom and the faint sound of Chen Lian singing made Chen Zihan feel dizzy. Wouldn't he be tired after playing the game for so long? Zhang Qingqing wiped the sweat from her neck and sat up. She felt a little pain in her knees as soon as she got out of bed. She couldn't do more exercises to liberate her nature and imitate animals. Zhang Qingqing rubbed her knees, pulled the silk in her hand and said to Chen Zihan, "Get up and take a shower. I don't want to sleep on a sweaty bed." Chen Zihan snorted, forced himself to sit up, and untied the restraints around his neck. Seeing that Zhang Qingqing was physically stronger than him, he didn't even dare to say harsh words. I really can't beat him. Otherwise, she must look good today. Let's go exercise tomorrow. Strive to stand up as soon as possible and work hard to sing, and avenge 1 bundle, 2 draws and 3 grinds. Let's go, or do you want me to lead you? Zhang Qingqing dropped the high silk in her hand and looked at Chen Zihan and said. Humph. Chen Zihan only dared to express his dissatisfaction with his nasal voice, but he followed Zhang Qingqing to take a shower honestly. The large bathroom can accommodate 3 people, and even a squeeze in the small bathtub can overflow the love. I don't know how much time passed, but Chen Lian was sitting on the sofa reading the evening newspaper delivered by the waiter. Zhang Qingqing and Chen Zihan had already fallen asleep. Chen Lian did not disturb them. After all, it was difficult for classmates to sleep in the same bed because of their gender differences. After all, Chen Lian is a serious person and remembers the good habit of reading more books and newspapers. There wasn't much big news in the newspapers. They just reported that they had made new breakthroughs in the field of science and had overtaken Europe, the United States and Japan. Chen Lian is still very interested in these, but he doesn't believe in catching up with Japan in technology. After all, Japan has mastered the technology of pausing time on the tram, leading the world. However, there are no reports about CCTV's bid for the title in today's evening newspapers. This evil trend has stopped, and Chen Lian breathed a sigh of relief. It is true that Leixin VCD needs advertising, but every time Bioang is mentioned, Chen Lian is mentioned, which almost overshadows Leixin VCD. It is not a good phenomenon that personal image is greater than brand image. A good and healthy company must put brand first. After Chen Lian flipped through the newspaper for a while, he touched his dry hair, glanced at the 2 sleeping girls, put on his clothes and left. I also paid an extra week's room fee at the front desk, so that the 2 girls can stay here for a few more days. When they leave here, they can move out of the school. The love between sisters is deep, so of course they have to live together, not just for the sake of love. At around 8 o'clock in the evening, Chen Lian deliberately spilled a little white wine on her clothes before arriving at Mei Chen's yard. She was thinking about what to pack to go to the hospital. At this point, Chen Lian had some experience, but he didn't show it, not when he was exposed in front of Beauty Chen. What did you do today? Chen Myron asked, smelling the smell of alcohol on Chen Lian. Chen Lian frowned and said as if he was overthinking, it's nothing. Just take good care of him. I will handle the outside matters. Hearing Chen Lian's words, Chen Myron immediately became nervous. Except for Chen Lian's expression when she was forced to marry, She had never seen him like this at other times. Could it be that Gong Li is really pregnant and is forcing her to get married? There are only these things in Chen Myron's mind now. She will not be stupid for 3 years after being pregnant, but her thinking is indeed affected a little. Chen Myron put down what she was holding, looked at Chen Lian and asked, "Tell me the truth, what happened?" Chen Lian pretended to look at her hesitantly before sighing and saying, "The pig was killed." "Huh? What do you mean?" Chen Myron asked with some confusion. Chen Lian sat on the sofa and rubbed his temples and said, "Li Xian, this fat little piggy, has been targeted by others. He has been cut off by several groups of people today. He has been too public recently and needs to keep a low profile." Chen Myron probably understood what it meant. She looked at Chen Lian and asked, "Someone wants to attack Li Xian?" "I'm not sure. If a private enterprise is so big, some people must be jealous," Chen Lian said falsely. "Some people are destined to be untouchable. I have to keep a low profile recently to avoid being caught by them. Otherwise, my children will be in trouble in the future. I can only drink the wind." When Chen Myron heard the child drinking, she sat next to Chen Lian worriedly and asked in disbelief, "It can't be so serious, right? They still dare to attack you?" "What's impossible?" Lao Chia, Lao Huo and Li Qiji all dared to attack him, and they were not polite when asking for money. It's just that wherever Chen Lian wants to go, it's not up to Chen Lian. What he tells is the truth anyway. Chen Lian sighed and said, "I originally wanted to give you a grand ceremony, but now it seems I can only keep it low-key." Chen Lian grabbed Chen Myron's hand and said, "I feel sorry for you. I can only do it this time, or how about we travel abroad and get married? Las Vegas is good. There are so many churches there." Chen Lian looked at Beauty Chen as if he was feeling guilty and said, "After you give birth to the baby, we will go to Las Vegas, and then we can go to the Maldives." Chen Myron was a little dizzy by Chen Lian's series of words. She looked at him confusedly and said, "Okay. It's just that it's not easy to explain to your parents," Chen Lian said with some embarrassment. Chen Myron looked at the frowning Chen Lian as if she could feel the pressure on him. She had also known how bad some people in that circle were since she was a child. Chen Lian must be under great pressure now. Chen Myron couldn't help but stretched out her hand to smooth his brow and said, "I'll talk to my parents over there." Chen Lian breathed a sigh of relief after hearing this. He finally did not waste his performance as the best actor. What women like is the emotional value. Why the scumbag can deceive so many girls is because his emotions are in place. Although it's a bit unkind to do this, Chen Lian can't help it. He can't hold a wedding in China. It's better to go abroad. You can also get married in a church in Las Vegas. This time, I'm going to explore the way and find out more about it. Such an unreliable church, go to someone else next time." Chen Lian's little abacus was crackling, but Chen Myron was so thick-skinned that she didn't hear any movement. It's not enough to appease Chen Myron here. Xiao Linmu also needs to have a showdown with Chen Myron's parents. After all, he agreed to get married, so isn't it also a marriage abroad? Don't worry about whether it works or not, just say it doesn't work. It's enough to have an explanation and let everyone live in peace. After Chen Lian appeased Chen Myron and the bidding matter came to an end, he immediately returned to Xiangjiang. It took him almost a week to return to China. There were probably many things waiting for him to deal with in Xiangjiang. On the plane flying to Shenzhen, Chen Lian said with emotion, "I'm too busy, both in art and career. Second uncle, if you really can't do it, ask my sister to resign and help you." Xiao Linmu glanced at Chen Lian angrily and said, "I think you are busy picking up girls. It's wrong of you to say that." "I haven't missed anything on my business," Chen Lian immediately retorted. Xiao Linmu thought about it, and it was true that although Chen Lian was lazy and did not participate in the daily management of the factory, he could always stand up and lead the factory in the right direction at critical moments. Without Chen Lian, likes and VCD would not be what it is now. Chen Lian laughed and said, even if I was picking up girls, I would delay the inheritance of the old Chen family. Just be envious of me, my second uncle. Old Chiao still doesn't have the next generation. Chiao Lin Muo, why hasn't this damn girl Chiao Ziyulin found a partner yet? Let her mother arrange a blind date later. After the plane landed in Shenzhen, Chen Lian and Chiao Linmu separated. One was going to Yangcheng and the other was going to Xiangjiang. After Chen Lian returned to Xiangjiang alone, he felt that the temperature here was still very comfortable for winter. Although there was no cold winter and no charming snow scenery, it was still very tempting for a northerner like Chen Lian. It's rare for northerners to see snow. Those who scream when they see snow are 100% southerners. After Chen Lian came out of the checkpoint, he went straight to the Victoria Hotel. Jifa was waiting for him. He didn't know what the situation was like at the art space in the past few days. More than half an hour later, Chen Lian saw Jifa in the hotel room. Looking at Jifa, who was wearing only silk pajamas and standing barefoot by the floor-to-ceiling window drinking, Chen Lian felt that the exchange later might not be serious. Jifa turned around and looked at Chen Lian, shaking the wine glass in his hand and saying, "You are finally back. Do you want to have a drink together?" Chen Lian shook his head and said, "Let's get down to business first. How is the art space these days? Is there anything I need to solve now?" "Need you?" Jifa chuckled, his face was red as if he had drunk too much, and he said in a frivolous voice, "Are you too underestimated my ability? The only one who needs you now is me." Chen Lian, I should have known I wouldn't have come back. This female liar. Jifa looked at Chen Lian's expression and smiled and said, "Okay, I'm just kidding, there is really something I need you to do." Hearing Jifa's words, Chen Lian breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, there was something he needed to do, otherwise he would really be the only fully automatic Ziwei emperor. It's very shameless, okay. Chen Lian sat on the sofa and looked at Jifa and asked, "Tell me, what is going on?" "It's not a big deal. This batch of art is about to be sold out. The handicrafts designed by you and those artists are also selling well these days." Jifa put down his wine glass and looked at Chen Lian and said, "So I need you to continue. There will be a meeting tomorrow. There is an auction that we are going to participate in to raise the prices of several pieces of art that we have sold." Chen Lian nodded, then looked at her and asked, "Is there anything else?" Jifa tilted his head and thought for a while and said, "One more thing, why didn't you tell me that your company's output value has exceeded 100 million? Why did you foolishly donate so much money in exchange for such a large sales volume?" Chen Lian smacked his lips and said, "You don't have to understand business to do business here, but you must understand ZZ. The top talents are all within the system, and only those who are not smart will do business or work part-time." Question marks popped up in Jifa's head. His dizzy brain seemed to be a little slow, and he didn't quite understand Chen Lian's words. Chen Lian didn't explain that much. Who would discuss business with a drunkard? Well, Jifa actually doesn't care that much, she just feels that Chen Lian is more attractive to her. Men who can make money are very attractive. Let's take a good look at this charming man tonight. Totally crazy. The ribbon around Jifa's waist fell apart, and the silk pajamas were extremely smooth and fell down directly. Chen Lian looked at the scene and understood a truth. It's not just the old ones who are cunning, but also the young ones. It's just that Chen Lian didn't expect Jifa to go crazy. Looking at Jifa, who was bending down and holding onto the floor-to-ceiling window with both hands, he felt as if he was wrapped in a huge jelly that fell to the ground and kept shaking. Can't be a man for only 5 minutes. Hold on. I don't know how long it took, but the noise in the room calmed down. Chen Lian bent down to clean up the mess. He didn't know where his clothes were. The wine glass fell to the floor, the chair fell over, and the carpet was so wet that he had to wipe it with a towel. After Chen Lian, who had been busy for a long time, sat down to rest, he felt that he had been a little too dissolute recently, and he didn't know what was going on. You obviously promised to do your career well, but why do you drive and fly every day? Alas, what a sin. Early the next morning, Chen Lian opened his eyes in a daze. There was no one in the room, and Ji Fa didn't know where he had gone. Chen Lian sat up and was in a daze for a while, wondering if he had dreamed yesterday. After getting up and washing up and eating, Chen Lian was still thinking about taking a rest when he received a call from Ji Fa. Ji Fa on the other end of the phone shouted directly, "Chen Lian. Are you up? Come to work quickly. I've been working for an hour." Chen Lian, she must have been dreaming yesterday, otherwise why would she be so energetic? It's too moisturizing. Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 288. Chapter 278-276. We can barely be considered a wealthy family. At the entrance of the Victoria Hotel, the hotel has prepared a special car for Chen Lian. The capitalist society is indeed very convenient. After Chen Lian got in the car, he picked up a magazine and flipped through it casually. The magazine was from last month and reported on this year's Forbes rankings. The richest man in Asia has appeared in Hong Kong. The richest man in Asia in 1996 is Li Ziaji, known as the fourth uncle in Hong Kong. He is worth more than $12 billion and belongs to the top wealthy family in Hong Kong. Chen Lian is actually quite curious about where the wealthy culture in Xiangjiang comes from. How can anyone call themselves wealthy? The strong capitalist style sounds very baseless. But it is true that they have no background. Most of the wealthy families in Xiangjiang are only 20 or 30 years old, so there is no problem in describing them as wealthy families. There are many wealthy families in Xiangjiang, dozens or hundreds of large and small wealthy families. The standard for wealthy families is actually very simple, that is, the measurement of family assets. Chen Lian didn't know how far he was from the standards of this so-called wealthy family, or that he was already considered a wealthy family, but he didn't care about being called a nouveau riche. The world is changing very fast. More than a month ago, Chen Lian was still a mainland boy begging on the streets of Xiangjiang. More than a month later, Chen Lian has become a rich family. This is really a slap in the face to many Hong Kong media, and even the people in Hong Kong have very different feelings about it. Especially those middle-class people who bought art from Chen Lian. I thought everyone was the same, but I didn't expect you to become a rich man quietly. However, such news shocked the stars in the Xiangjiang entertainment circle. Many female stars who had met Chen Lian were interested. Aren't people like Chen Lian more attractive than wealthy families? Instead of looking for the useless second generation who may not have the right to inherit, it is better to look for a self-made generation like Chen Lian. There are not so many rules of a wealthy family, and he can still control his wealth freely. The most important thing is that he is handsome and talented, which makes him more attractive than Lu. Chen Lian became a hotcake in this way, but his family knew about his family affairs, and Chen Lian's wealth was not as much as the outside world thought. He only owns half of the shares of Lixin VCD, and Lixin doesn't have much money at all now. The CCTV bid king has to pay part of the money first, and the factory's production has to keep up, so money has to be spent everywhere. This year's sales of several hundred million are actually less than 20% of the factory's profit. The profit margin of electronic products is normally between 20 and 30%, and part of the profit goes to the dealers. In addition, this year has entered a war in the home appliance industry, and prices have been reduced a lot, and profits have been compressed a lot. With sales of more than 800 million and a profit of less than 200 million, the real money Chen Lian received was only tens of millions. However, Chen Lian couldn't get all the money. The factory had to continue to develop, so how could he take away all the profits? Chen Lian has no intention of becoming a rich man now. He only feels that he is a piggy covered with gold foil, with a shiny surface. However, if you count the shares as assets, Chen Lian is now a billionaire, but in Chen Lian's view, the money he has not received is just a number, and who knows what day it will be gone. Leixin VCD is worth so much today, but it may not be worth much tomorrow. Who can say? When the hotel car stopped, Chen Lian threw the magazine in his hand on the seat. The richest man in Asia was too far away from him, and he probably wouldn't be able to do it in his life. It's good to be an artist with a little money. If I really want to make that much money, even if Chen Lian has been having bad luck and still has future memories, he doesn't know how much energy and time he has to put in to do it. Why waste that energy? It would be great to talk about art with beauties in a leisurely manner. After arriving at the art space, Chen Lian didn't see many people inside, only a dozen people visiting. Chen Lian walked around the exhibition hall without seeing Ji Fa, so he walked towards the office area at the back. At this time, Ji Fa was chatting with several reporters, and the topic of conversation was also related to Chen Lian. The news that Chen Lian spent 300 million on CCTV 2 days ago has been brewing in Hong Kong for 2 days, but there is no detailed report. The gossip magazines want to make up one of their own, but they are worried that Chen Lian will make some big move. They still remember the lesson from the last time. It was originally just a piece of gossip news, but it was turned into international news by Chen Lian. Zhangjiang's international image was damaged. For internationally famous artists like Chen Lian, they have learned a lot. It's better not to provoke me if you can. Who knows what day he will say something in foreign media that will affect his international image. When Chen Lian walked into the rest area, he heard Ji Fa and the reporters chatting about some things about himself. However, the topic of conversation was not Chen Lian's business in the mainland but how this art space combines art and business. What a person Chen Lian is. Business-savvy artist. Ji Fa dared to brag and almost blew Chen Lian to the sky. However, the reporter was very interested and listened with great interest. After seeing Chen Lian coming, he stood up to say hello to him and wanted to interview him. Chen Lian saw Ji Fa's eyes and nodded in agreement, but he didn't expect the reporter's first question to be very sharp. Art has always avoided dealing with capital and politics. Why did you take the initiative to combine art with commerce and become a businessman? Is your art still pure? Chen Lian raised his eyebrows slightly and said, "The purer the art, the better." However, this does not mean that artists do not have to live, and the creation of art has nothing to do with business. What's more, my works are not sold, so capital is not involved. The last point left the two reporters speechless. It was really nice to say, but Chen Lian's work was indeed not sold this time, so he couldn't find any reason to criticize it. With such a not-so-gentle opening, the subsequent questions naturally shifted to business. I asked Chen Lian many questions about business, and seemed to treat him as a businessman rather than an artist. However, every time the topic went off track, Ji Fa would correct it and emphasize that Chen Lian was an artist and a businessman second. Chen Lian also stated that he has never participated in specific business management, and only occasionally participates in business operations as a consultant and investor. Both Chen Lian and Ji Fa are more interested in Chen Lian's identity as an artist. If it weren't for the fact that CCTV's bidding was related to Leixin's development in the next year, Chen Lian would not have taken the lead. But now that it has come to the fore, just accept the consequences. He is not the only rich artist. As long as you keep a low profile from now on, don't always label yourself a businessman. The interview ended soon. Chen Lian took a sip of water and watched Ji Fa send the reporters away, along with several souvenirs that were on sale, worth tens of thousands. After Ji Fa came back, Chen Lian asked, "Why are you arranging this interview? Didn't I tell you yesterday? We have to continue packaging, and at the same time, we have to show the outside world that you are not doing this for money." Jifa suddenly remembered something in the middle of speaking, pulled out a newspaper from a few days ago and handed it to Chen Lian and said, "Look at this newspaper, an expert said that what you are doing is not art, but a complete commodity, and it does not have any the collection value is just to defraud money in Xiangjiang." After Chen Lian took the newspaper and read it, he understood what Jifa meant. These people were half right. They were doing it to make money, but Chen Lian was not doing it just to make money for himself. However, art is really art, and just because you put a price on an artwork does not negate its artistry. Jifa looked at Chen Lian and said, "Now that you have spent more than 200 million in the capital, no one will believe this conclusion. There is a huge difference between the two. The richer you are, the more this art space will appear. Purely." Chen Lian had never thought about it from this perspective, but what Jifa said made sense. Everything has pros and cons. It would be different if you look at it from another angle. This is what makes professionals special. If Chen Lian did it himself, he probably wouldn't even know what to do at this time. Public opinion and marketing and public relations are really beyond the reach of ordinary people. Chen Lian looked at Jifa and said, "You are so professional. I am very glad that you have joined this project." "This is just the most basic," Jifa said nonchalantly. "In the Western world, controlling public opinion is a required course for every capitalist." Chen Lian couldn't help but nodded. What he said really made sense. Isn't that what capital does? Looking at it this way, domestic entrepreneurs are really weak and can only spend money on advertising without any thought. Domestic capitalists still need time to grow. When Chen Lian thinks about 20 years from now, he feels that there are not many good days left for him, and he must make some money quickly and retire early. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Chen Lian and Jifa attended an auction in Xiangjiang. Jifa took action and bought 3 works of art that he had sold, tripling the price. After the auction, Jifa immediately went to contact the media to promote it. The middle class who invest in art must see successful investment cases. Chen Lian did not participate in what happened next. He left the auction and went to find Wang Zuxian. When Chen Lian arrived at Wang Zuxian's place, he heard some bad news. Leslie Chung fell ill in Argentina due to acclimatization. Chen Lian sighed after hearing this. He had already told him not to take on this drama, but he didn't listen. Wang Zuxian looked at Chen Lian worriedly and said, "Is my brother going to be okay? It shouldn't be anything. I specifically told him to take the doctor there." After thinking about it for a while, Chen Lian still felt uneasy, so he took out his phone and called Cheng Shifen. The phone rang several times before Cheng Shifen picked up the phone. She seemed to be busy packing her things. After answering the phone, she said directly, "Lian, I'm going to Argentina now. You and Jifa can handle the art space. She's very sick and I'm worried something is going to go wrong." Chen Lian began to worry when he heard what Cheng Shifen said, and asked anxiously, "Have you found out the specific cause?" "I'll go with you." "Amoeba virus, doctors have now controlled the disease." Cheng Shifen sighed and said, "Fortunately, I listened to you and brought the doctor with you, otherwise the situation would have been really bad." Chen Lian breathed a sigh of relief when he heard this, and said to Cheng Shifen on the other end of the phone, "That's good. I'll fly with you when you want to." Cheng Shifen paused for a while on the other end of the phone before saying, "He specifically told you not to go. Even Mr. Tang didn't let me go. If I hadn't insisted, he wouldn't have let me go. Now that the condition is under control, you don't worry." What a hypocritical person. Have you all written a suicide note? Chen Lian couldn't help but cursed, and then said to Cheng Shifen, "Okay, if anything happens, please contact me in time. I will teach him a lesson when he comes back." Hearing Chen Lian's words, Cheng Shifen's mood relaxed a little, and she said with a smile, "Okay, when he comes back, you will teach him a lesson for me. Everyone has said that he and Wang Jiai are not compatible. If you don't listen, you will never let him go in the future. We are no longer cooperating with Wang Jiai. Let's reduce his work in the future and make fewer movies. Now he's back in the music scene. Let's just sing honestly from now on. Chen Lian sighed and chatted with Cheng Shifen for a few more words before hanging up the phone. How is it? Is Brother Yan serious? Wang Zuxian asked worriedly from the side. Chen Lian looked at the anxious Wang Zuxian and comforted him with a smile. It's okay. The condition is under control. If you are infected with the virus, you can recover for a while. That's good, it scared me to death. Wang Zuxian patted her chest with some fear. Chen Lian didn't want Wang Zuxian to worry too much, so he put his arm around her waist and deliberately changed the subject and asked, "You are so worried, what if I were to?" No nonsense, Wang Zuxian immediately put her fingers on Chen Lian's lips. Chen Lian looked at Wang Zuxian's angry look, opened his mouth and bit her finger, and said with a smile, "I'm in such good health, I'm sure everything will be fine." Wang Zuxian pulled out her fingers in disgust and said, "It's all your saliva." "You dislike me," Chen Lian snorted and said, "Don't beg me that night." "I won't beg you." Wang Zuxian pinched Chen Lian's cheek, stood up and said, "I'm going to take a shower." After taking 2 steps, Wang Zuxian looked back at Chen Lian and said, "I put on new nail polish." Chen Lian took a look at Wang Zuxian's feet. The white toes and black nails looked particularly sexy, so he coughed and stood up and said, "Let's wash them together and save water resources." Wang Zuxian smiled evilly and said, "Then please beg me." Chen Lian, just beg, let her come back later. Make her kneel, stand, lie down, and beg her. Not long after, Wang Zuxian's begging for mercy came from the bathroom. "No, my knees are red in this position. The bathtub is so hard. Please hurry up, please." "Then can you dive?" "Underwater, that is." "Then I'd rather kneel." Chen Lian snorted, "This is your choice, don't regret it." After a while, the two of them came out of the bathroom, walked around the living room and then went to the bedroom. It was just that the smooth floor was covered with handprints and water stains, as if someone had walked around the living room on their hands and knees. Wang Zuxian, who originally had classes the next day, asked for leave. She really couldn't move. Her knees hurt and her arms had no strength. She just wanted to rest at home. Chen Lian was even kicked out by Wang Zuxian, otherwise she would not have a chance to have a good rest. "Oh, it's so miserable to be kicked out of the house." Chen Lian sighed and muttered, "I don't know if she has learned the painting skills that Zhou Huimin taught me last time. Why don't she check it out? I sprained my neck tonight and can't move my right shoulder blade. I have one more chapter that I will finish during the day tomorrow. It won't be short. Please forgive me for my minor illness." Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 289. Chapter 279-277. Wet paintbrush. In the noisy street, pedestrians were rushing around. Chen Lian was leaning on the railing on the roadside. All the pedestrians on the roadside were in a hurry, but he was the only one who was doing nothing. And he found a very interesting thing. Most of the female celebrities he met in Xiangjiang were semi-retired. This may be due to his subconscious mind, and he is reluctant to have too much contact with those female stars who only want to be popular and make money. It's not that Chen Lian doesn't want to spend money on women, but that he doesn't want to put in the effort. Most people who want money have a lot of thoughts and want to marry into a rich family. It cannot be solved by giving money or coaxing. Chen Lian prefers emotional people, and he is reluctant to interact with people who are too rational and realistic. In other words, Chen Lian likes to play emotional games instead of throwing away money. Just like Neptune, he never wants to go to the club because he will be laughed at if he talks about it. Chen Lian took off his mask and took a breath. He couldn't figure out why Zhou Huimin asked him to go shopping. Did he want to stir up scandals or simply want to experience the life of ordinary people? Hopefully it's not the former. Chen Lian leaned on the railing and looked at the busy streets, feeling a little bored. Zhou Huimin went out too slowly. After waiting for almost 10 minutes, Chen Lian's cell phone rang. He picked up the phone and took a look. It was Zhou Huimin calling. So I answered the phone, and before I could speak, I heard Zhou Huimin shouting happily on the phone, "I see you." Chen Lian turned around and looked around, and finally saw him across the street. Zhou Huimin is wearing a beige windbreaker and fisherman hat. She looks very ordinary and is not very conspicuous in the crowd. After the aura on the stage fades away, celebrities are no different from amateurs, they just look better. But who can tell whether it looks good or not when wearing a mask? Chen Lian looked at Zhou Huimin opposite and said to the phone, "Wait for me over there, I'll be there right away." Good. After Chen Lian hung up the phone, he glanced at the railing in front of him and then at the long street. He felt a little troubled by the road design in Xiangjiang. To get to the other side of the street, he had to walk several hundred meters to the overpass and go around. The completely different design from the mainland made Chen Lian feel very uncomfortable. He even felt that such a design was anti-human. Chen Lian was determined to imitate the movie, but after taking a look at the policemen in military uniforms patrolling not far away, he gave up the plan. Chen Lian walked toward the overpass nearest to him. Zhou Huimin on the opposite side also walked in that direction after seeing it. Chen Lian and Zhou Huimin looked at each other from a distance of more than 10 meters, with smiles on their faces. It seemed that their boring journey turned into romance. Whenever a car passes by, blocking their sight and then disappearing, they can still catch each other's figures immediately, their eyes intertwined from a distance. The distance of several hundred meters and a road separating them gave them the feeling of an idle drama. In the long and narrow overpass passage, among the pedestrians walking back and forth, Chen Lian and Zhou Huimin looked at each other across the crowd from a distance. As the two got closer and closer, their steps gradually accelerated. Zhou Huimin looked at Chen Lian walking towards her and felt her heartbeat gradually speeding up. Such a scene and feeling made her feel very romantic. When the two were only a few steps away, Zhou Huimin suddenly started jogging, ran to Chen Lian, stopped and looked into his eyes while panting slightly. At that moment, Zhou Huimin even wanted to reach out and hug Chen Lian, but in the end he stopped because it was too unreserved. Zhou Huimin didn't know what this feeling meant, but she just felt that she wanted to hug Chen Lian tightly at this moment. The feeling of running in both directions just now made her heart beat fast and she felt like she was in love. If this was a TV series, the camera would start to rotate and zoom out at this point. Chen Lian looked at Zhou Huimin and laughed, stretched out his hand and looked at her. At this time, a ray of sunlight slanted through the glass of the passage and shone on Chen Lian. Zhou Huimin felt in a daze that Chen Lian was glowing when he smiled. The white and slender little hand was involuntarily raised and placed in Chen Lian's palm, and then was tightly held by Chen Lian's broad palm. The warm feeling on the palm made Zhou Huimin's heart beat faster. This may be the feeling of heartbeat. More than 10 minutes later, Chen Lian held Zhou Huimin's hand and walked down the street. The two of them cuddled up and talked quietly like ordinary young lovers. Occasionally they would go in and take a look at interesting shops when they saw them. When passing by a video store, Zhou Huimin took Chen Lian in, rummaged through the shelves, and immediately became happy after finding the album she had just released this year. She still remembered that Chen Lian said that she liked the songs in her album the most. Zhou Huimin looked at Chen Lian with the record and asked curiously, "Why do you like that song? Maybe it's time to break up." "Because you are the most beautiful when you are single." Chen Lian took the album from Zhou Huimin's hand and looked at the cover, and said with a smile, "This photo is very beautiful. You are suitable for a white skirt." On the cover, Zhou Huimin looks particularly innocent wearing a white skirt and stepping on the gravel with her bare feet. "Then I'll give it to you." Zhou Huimin smiled, tilted his head and looked at Chen Lian and asked, Do you want to sign it for you? Yes, but can it be signed somewhere else? Chen Lian put down the album and looked at Zhou Huimin and asked. Zhou Huimin asked without knowing why, where is the signature? This Chen Lian pointed to his chest. After hearing Chen Lian's words, Zhou Huimin was obviously wrong, with a shy joy on his face. Did he mean to keep himself in mind? Zhou Huimin realized after a moment of innocence, how could such a man fall in love with someone so easily? Then he had something on his mind? Zhou Huimin, who didn't know what he was thinking of, blushed, looked at Chen Lian and whispered softly, "You can't sign here either." "Then I'll sign it when I have time." Chen Lian took Zhou Huimin's hand and paid for the album, then went home with her. Nothing has changed in Zhou Huimin's home. The only thing that is different from the last time Chen Lian saw it is that the painting has been finished. Chen Lian walked over and took a closer look, then turned to Zhou Huimin and said, "You draw very well, you are really talented." "Really?" Zhou Huimin looked at Chen Lian with some joy and said, "But I always feel that I didn't master the technique you taught me last time. I couldn't control the strokes when I closed the pen." Hearing this, Chen Lian bent down and picked up an unused paintbrush, and said to Zhou Huimin, "Stretch out your hand." Zhou Huimin obediently stretched out her hand, waiting for Chen Lian to hold her hand and draw like last time. However, Chen Lian did not put the brush in her hand, but drew on her palm with the brush. Feel it carefully, and when you lift the brush at the end, give it a slight tick. The moment the soft brush brushed across her palm, Zhou Huimin couldn't help but curl up her palm, and a tickling feeling spread through her palm to her heart. "Do you feel it?" Chen Lian raised his pen and looked at Zhou Huimin and asked. Zhou Huimin bit her lip and shook her head slightly, then opened her palms and looked at him intently. Chen Lian curled up the corner of his mouth, took the brush and drew another stroke on her palm. The itchy feeling came over again, and Zhou Huimin couldn't help but squint her eyes, like a kitten whose chin was scratched. Chen Lian didn't ask her if she felt it this time, and continued to draw lightly on her body with the brush. Zhou Huimin couldn't help but snorted coquettishly. Chen Lian paused when he heard the sound. Zhou Huimin reacted, looked at him with a red face and said, "It's so itchy. The palms of my hands are too itchy." The cry just now was too shameful, and he wasn't doing that kind of thing, so how could he scream so charmingly? Chen Lian put down his brush and said nonchalantly, "What about changing places?" Where to change? Zhou Huimin's breathing was slightly quickened, as if he was looking forward to Chen Lian changing places. Chen Lian took the paintbrush and turned it around on his finger a few times, then used the tip of the brush to gently sweep over Zhou Huimin's fair neck, and finally stopped on her chin and said softly, "Is it okay anywhere?" Zhou Huimin squinted her eyes and her ears were already red. She looked at Chen Lian with emotional eyes and nodded lightly. The paintbrush in Chen Lian's hand brushed upward along Zhou Huimin's jawline, and gently turned in a circle on her reddish earlobe. Zhou Huimin opened her mouth slightly and hummed. She fell limply into Chen Lian's arms. She raised her head and looked at him in confusion and said, "Shall we go to the room?" Hearing this, Chen Lian wrapped his arms around her slender waist and picked her up, walking towards Zhou Huimin's boudoir, holding the pen between his fingers and dangling gently in the air. With a bang, the bedroom door was closed, and soon a lot of clothes were scattered on the floor of the bedroom. In the quiet living room, you can vaguely hear the sounds coming from the bedroom. The soft and gentle sounds are like a lark, sometimes tactful and sometimes high-pitched. I don't know how long it took, but the movement in the bedroom calmed down. A wet paintbrush fell on the clothes on the ground. The soft brush was covered with crystal clear and sticky liquid, and flowed down the smooth pen barrel into a ball of white. On the lace dress. Zhou Huimin stared at the ceiling blankly, feeling that he had re-understood the concept of painting, and for the first time he clearly understood how different his painting skills were from Chen Lian. A true master never cares where he paints, and even brings his own white paint. Well, he also brings his own water to mix the paint. It turns out that watercolor painting still has this kind of painting method. It really gained me a lot of experience. Chen Lian may not be a good teacher. Sometimes he is too focused on his own feelings, and he doesn't know whether Zhou Huimin has learned anything. Chen Lian bent down to pick up the brush, and pinched the brush with his fingertips. The sticky and slippery water droplets immediately dripped down and landed on Zhou Huimin's body. Have you learned what I just taught you for so long? Zhou Huimin glanced down, wiped the water stains on the pink strawberries with her fingers, gave Chen Lian a charming look, and said feebly, "Do you think I can learn it just now?" Chen Lian sighed. He was indeed not a good teacher. His teaching methods were not quite right. It would be better to teach her step by step. After Zhou Huimin had rested, the two returned to the easel and changed to a new drawing paper. Chen Lian held Zhou Huimin's hand and carefully taught her how to master different painting techniques. Zhou Huimin watched the beautiful colors painted by the brush on the drawing paper. He couldn't help but look down at his white calves, and suddenly wondered what it would look like if it were painted on his body. However, she was a little embarrassed to say this, so she deliberately raised her calf while the paint was on it. The remaining blue on the paintbrush immediately painted a beautiful color on her white ankle. Chen Lian took back the pen and was about to wipe it off for her when he heard Zhou Huimin say, "It looks pretty good, like body painting." Chen Lian paused for a moment and turned to look at Zhou Huimin, whose face was slightly red. Zhou Huimin was a little shy and did not dare to look at Chen Lian. She lowered her head and kept looking at her white ankles. After taking a look, Chen Lian dipped a paintbrush into the palette and reached out to grab Zhou Huimin's calf. The paintbrush fell gently, and the cold paint was immediately smeared on Zhou Huimin's white calf. The next time is Chen Lian's creative time. It is also his first time to try body painting, so he is extremely serious, thinking about how to design the pattern while painting. Time passes like this in Chen Lian's focused creation. Chen Lian left Zhou Huimin's home at noon the next day. As expected, artistic creation consumes energy and he has not slept for almost 24 hours. However, Chen Lian felt that he was still very excited and energetic. If Wang Zuxian hadn't made several phone calls, he would still want to continue. Zhou Huimin also wished that Chen Lian would leave as soon as possible. He couldn't stop for a moment. "Aren't you tired?" "I have so much energy, I finally exhausted it, and after a while I was full of energy again." Chen Lian couldn't help but sigh. He just loved art. Art was addictive and he couldn't touch it. Once he touched it, he couldn't quit, and he didn't want to. But Chen Lian had to go back as soon as possible. If he didn't go back, Wang Zuxian would make a lot of calls, and he didn't know what would happen to him. After Chen Lian rushed back to Wang Zuxian's house, he saw her sitting on the sofa with her arms folded, waiting for him. "What's wrong? Why are you so anxious?" Chen Lian walked over and asked. "What did you do yesterday?" "I went painting and met an artist from Xiangjiang. I had a good chat with her at the art space, so I went to her studio to have a look and discuss several techniques of watercolor painting together." After saying that, Chen Lian deliberately rolled up his sleeves, and the paint stained on the cuffs just swayed in front of Wang Zuxian's eyes. Wang Zuxian took a sniff and smelled the smell of paint on Chen Lian's body, and then she was relieved of her doubts. Her expression relaxed slightly and she started talking about business. Sister Shufen called back. "My brother's condition is very serious. Although doctors have controlled it, he still has high fever, vomiting and diarrhea." When Wang Zuxian said this, she said angrily, "Sister Shufen wants to bring my brother back. The Wang family I have taken away everyone's passports and will not give them back." Chen Lian's expression changed, and then he remembered that Wang Jiai was a bad guy. When filming Happy Together, because he hadn't finished writing the script and didn't know where to shoot, he was worried that the crew would run away, so he collected all their passports. Woke up. Just put it away. He didn't care that Leslie Chung was sick or infected with the virus. He walked around with the photographer every day and didn't care at all about the actor's life or death. The more Chen Lian thought about it, the angrier he became. He immediately stood up and said, "You call to book a ticket right now. I will go to Argentina now." "Okay, I'll go with you. I will make up for what I did yesterday, and I will update 2 more chapters tonight, but it will be a little later. Fortunately, I won't be working tomorrow, so I'm happy." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 290. Chapter 280-278. Your sunglasses are all broken. On the plane flying to Argentina, white clouds passed by both sides of the plane, and it was particularly bright under the sunlight. Chen Lian, who was sitting at the window, was not in the mood to look at the scenery at this time. He was a little worried about Zhang Guorong's current situation, and was even more angry at Wang Jiayi's irresponsible behavior. It's true that movies are the director's art, but you can't treat the rest of the crew as tools. Zhang Guorong is sick now, but he doesn't care at all. Is this something that humans can do? Chen Lian now thinks about giving Wang Jiayi a big mouth and smashing his sunglasses after meeting him. Sitting next to Chen Lian, Wang Zuxian was also very anxious. Looking at Chen Lian, who had always been sullen, she didn't know how to comfort him. She herself was still angry about what the Wang family had not done. After a while, Wang Zuxian took the initiative and said, "Lian, isn't it bad that you didn't notify Tang this time?" Chen Lian came back to his senses and thought for a moment and said, "Brother doesn't want him to know, so let's not make our own decisions to save him from worrying." Wang Zuxian nodded and did not continue the topic, but asked, "What if the Wang family doesn't let him go after we go? Let's see if he is that courageous anymore." Chen Lian frowned and said, "My brother's situation is not stable or getting worse for the time being. Sister Shifen probably doesn't want to completely break up with him." The matter was similar to what Chen Lian thought. Cheng Shifen didn't really want to completely break up with the Wang family. She just discussed with the Wang family about releasing him. In fact, if you are tougher, you can just ask for your passport back and leave. There is another reason why Cheng Shifen did not break up, and that is that Zhang Guorong still wanted to continue filming. Even though he is like this, he is still thinking about filming. I really don't know what he is thinking. Chen Lian was quite anxious, but he had to transfer in Paris before flying to Argentina, which took a long time. It took more than 30 hours from Xiangjiang to landing in Argentina. After Chen Lian came out of the airport, he went straight to the hospital where Zhang Guorong was located. They didn't know whether Zhang Guorong's condition had worsened during the more than 30 hours on the plane. Chen Lian and Wang Zuxian were both worried. Chen Lian doesn't have many friends. Zhang Guorong is a friend he cares about very much. The most important thing is that Chen Lian knows how twists and turns Zhang Guorong's fate is, and he can't help but worry at this juncture. Argentina is currently in spring and summer, with pleasant weather and beautiful scenery. Chen Lian feels quite calm when looking at the scenery outside the car window. Wang Zuxian was not in the mood to look at the scenery, so she held Chen Lian's hand to relax a little. Soon the car arrived at the hospital. After Chen Lian paid the fare, he and Wang Zuxian walked towards the hospital. But it was very troublesome after entering the hospital. The nurse didn't speak English, and Chen Lian couldn't understand the Spanish she spoke. The nurse didn't speak English as well as the taxi driver. "Lian. This way." When Chen Lian was having a headache, he suddenly heard Cheng Shifen's voice, and then he breathed a sigh of relief and walked towards Cheng Shifen with Wang Zuxian. "Sister Shifen, how is the situation?" Chen Lian asked as soon as he walked up to Cheng Shifen. Cheng Shifen looked at the anxious Chen Lian and Wang Zuxian and comforted them. "The situation has improved a lot today, Don't worry. That's good. Chen Lian breathed a sigh of relief, and then led Cheng Shifen into the ward. In the ward, Zhang Guorong was lying on the bed receiving an infusion. His face was very pale and he looked extremely weak. Only doctors Liang Chaoei and Zhang Guorong were in front of the hospital bed. Wang Jiaei did not appear in the ward, otherwise Chen Lian would definitely give him a bad mouth. After seeing Chen Lian and Wang Zuxian come in, Tony Leung stood up and nodded. He looked very introverted, which was quite different from his image on the screen. Chen Lian said hello to her. Seeing that Zhang Guorong was sleeping soundly without making a sound to wake him up, he turned to the doctor and asked, "How is my brother's condition?" The doctor whispered, "The symptoms have eased somewhat, but the medical conditions here are a little worse. It will take time to recover." Then the doctor and Chen Lian did some popular science about amoebic dysentery. Normally, the symptoms are not very serious and it takes 5 to 6 weeks to recover. However, Zhang Guorong's body is not very healthy to begin with, so it will take longer. If the medical condition is better, the diet will be controlled faster. After hearing this, Chen Lian nodded lightly and looked at Wang Zuxian who was sitting in front of the hospital bed worried. He turned to Cheng Shifen and said, "Sister Shifen, in this case, my brother should go back to Xiangjiang for treatment. The conditions here are a little worse." Cheng Shifen sighed and said to Chen Lian, "Let's go out and chat and let him have a good rest." Outside the ward, Cheng Shifen looked at Chen Lian and said helplessly, he doesn't want to go back. He wants to wait until he recovers and finishes filming the movie before leaving. Chen Lian frowned and said, "You can't listen to him on this matter. When will it get better if it continues like this? If you go to work after you get better, your body will collapse. Moreover, his concert will not be long, so he doesn't take a good rest he won't be able to withstand such high-intensity work at a concert." Cheng Shifen was silent for a while and said, "I thought so too, but he insisted on filming, and Wang Jiaei was unwilling to let him go. I'll go talk to Wang Jiaei over there." Chen Lian looked at Cheng Shifen and said, "Sister Shifen, please prepare yourself. Contact the hospital in Xiangjiang, or go directly to Paris and the United States. This movie will not be filmed." Hearing what Chen Lian said, Cheng Shifen also made up her mind and nodded, "Okay, then I will make arrangements now to go directly to the United States to recuperate, otherwise it will be too troublesome to transfer back to Xiangjiang." Chen Lian actually couldn't understand why Leslie Chung had to film this movie. The Wang family didn't even know what he was going to film until now. "Why are you, an actor, so excited?" Chen Lian and Cheng Shifen chatted outside for a while before returning to the ward. Zhang Guorong had woken up at this time, and a forced smile appeared on his pale face after seeing Chen Lian. Lian, Zhang Guorong called softly, but still tried to raise the corners of his mouth and said, "Are you so afraid of my death?" Chen Lian looked at Leslie Chung who was still showing off, couldn't help but rolled his eyes, sat across from him and said, "Yes, I'm afraid you will die here and no one will collect your body." Crow's mouth, Wang Zuxian slapped Chen Lian angrily. Zhang Guorong didn't care, and said with a smile, "I won't die that easily. I have to go back to hold a concert." "Look at what you're like now, and you're still holding a concert. You don't even have the energy to speak." Chen Lian said to Leslie Chung a little toughly, "I will go to the United States with me tomorrow for medical treatment. This drama will not be filmed." After Chen Lian finished speaking, there was a brief silence in the ward. Liang Chaoei glanced at him and said nothing. He didn't want to film this movie anymore. Leslie Chung was silent for a while and looked at Chen Lian and said, "I want to film it. Director Wang and I have been friends for many years, and he told me the story of the movie, and I want to act in it." Chen Lian looked at him and said, "You have to listen to me when I come. If I don't come, you can do whatever you want. Leave tomorrow. I will communicate with Wang Sunjing and let him play by himself." Zhang Guorong wanted to say something more, but Wang Zuxian held his hand and said, "Brother, listen to Lian. Stop talking and have a good rest." Zhang Guorong looked at the people in the room who hoped that he could recuperate, and knew that Chen Lian would definitely not let him continue to act when he came over. He sighed helplessly, leaned on the hospital bed, closed his eyes and stopped talking. If it were someone else, Zhang Guorong might have been tougher, but facing Chen Lian, he knew that it would be useless even if he argued with him, and the outcome would not change because of his attitude. Seeing Zhang Guorong's resigned expression, Chen Lian said to Wang Zuxian, "You and Sister Shifen are here to help him pack his things and contact the hospital in the United States. I will go find Wang Jiai." Wang Zuxian nodded and agreed. Chen Lian turned to look at Cheng Shifen and asked, "Sister Shifen, where is the contract?" "I'm going to find Wang Jiai now." Cheng Shifen immediately pulled out a contract and handed it to Chen Lian and said, "The liquidated damages are 2 million Hong Kong dollars. I will pay this amount." Chen Lian didn't care about the liquidated damages. He took the contract and said to Liang Chaoei, "Do you know where Wang Jiai is? Please take me to find him." Liang Chaoei nodded and said, "I know, I'll take you there." The two of them left the hospital and went to the hotel. On the way, Tony Leung glanced at Chen Lian and suddenly asked, "Why don't you come to act in this drama? I heard that director Wang came to see you later." Chen Lian coughed and said, "I won't do gay drama, and it will be with my brother." Liang Chaoei couldn't help but lower the corner of his mouth, and after a while he said to Chen Lian, "If you take my brother away, I will also thank you. I don't want to act anymore." Chen Lian turned to look at him and asked, "Why?" Because of the sex scene. After Liang Chaoei finished speaking, he turned to look out the car window and stopped talking. He seemed to be feeling a lot of rejection in his heart. Chen Lian was not surprised when he heard it. Not everyone can accept intimate scenes with same-sex themes. After driving for half an hour, the car arrived at the hotel where Happy Together stayed. Chen Lian was led by Liang Chaoei to Wang Jiai's room. Chen Lian stepped forward and knocked hard on the door. After a while, Wang Jiai, who was wearing sunglasses, opened the door. Chen Lian looked at Wang Jiai, who was also wearing sunglasses in the room, and couldn't help but feel angry. Wang Jiai is talented, Chen Lian admits it, but he is really not a good guy. I won't tell you how many sins Zhang Guorong suffered by working with him. Zhang Menu was detained on the set for more than half a year while filming In the Mood for Love, which led to a breakdown in their relationship and a divorce. Later, they collaborated on the filming of 2046 and still did not care about the life and death of the actors, so Zhang Menu had to quit the role halfway. In addition, there are Song Haikyo, Quan Chuyi, and others. There is nothing wrong with an actor taking a role and cooperating with the director, but you can't treat people as human beings. Just like this time, Leslie Chung and Wang Jiai clearly agreed on a 6-week period. It's been 3 weeks now, and the filming hasn't been confirmed yet. Damn it, the actors are being wasted, they are being squeezed hard, and the pay is pitifully low. The most important thing is that Zhang Guorong is sick and hospitalized now, and you are still unwilling to let him go. You only think about your own movie. The more Chen Lian thought about it, the angrier he became and couldn't help but move his wrist. Wang Jiai was stunned for a moment when he saw that the person outside the door was Chen Lian. Before he could speak, he was slapped on the face. Snapped. The crisp slap immediately stunned Liang Chaoei, who was behind Chen Lian. He glanced sideways and couldn't help being shocked. Wang Jiai received a slap and was knocked over. He fell to the ground and groaned in pain, and the sunglasses on his face fell to the ground. Chen Lian looked at Wang Jiai, who fell on the ground without any change in his expression. He walked into the room and stepped on his sunglasses, crushing them to pieces. The crackling sound of the sunglasses was accompanied by Wang Jiai's painful groan, which made Chen Lian's mood change. Much better. Dukefan, who had originally discussed the shooting with the Wang family in the room, stood up and yelled at Chen Lian after seeing this scene, "Lian, don't be impulsive, why did you hit someone?" Chen Lian glanced at him. He was an old acquaintance, but he still ignored him. He bent down and grabbed Wang Jiayi's collar, pulled him up and said, "Do you know why I hit you?" Wang Jiayi's eyes were small and slightly fierce, looking at Chen Lian with a hint of fear, but more resentment and anger. Chen Lian looked at Wang Jiayi's expression, reached out and slapped him again on the face. Liang Chaoyi felt pain watching from behind. He couldn't help but glance at Duke Feng in the room, and then came over to pull Chen Lian and Wang Jiayi away at the same time. "Stop fighting, talk about it." Even though Liang Chaoyi was introverted at this time, he started talking more. He pulled Chen Lian to persuade him, "Don't do anything, don't be angry." At this time, Duke Fan also helped Wang Jiayi and took him to hide in the room, far away from Chen Lian. Seeing Chen Lian being held back by Liang Chaoyi, Wang Jiayi felt a little more confident. He covered his swollen mouth and muttered loudly, "Call the police. Call the police and arrest him." When Chen Lian heard the word "call the police," he didn't feel the slightest fear in his heart. The Argentine police didn't bother to care about the fight between two foreigners. And as long as he had money, even if he called the police, Chen Lian didn't worry about what would happen. He was a celebrity after all. There are also many celebrities who are aware of it. Chen Lian broke away from Liang Chaoyi's hand and looked at Wang Jiayi and said, "Please call the police. I can throw you down from here before the police come." Hearing Chen Lian's cold words, Wang Jiayi took a step back in fear, just in time to retreat to the window. He subconsciously turned his head and glanced, the 9th floor, everyone is going to be thrown down. Wang Jiayi turned his head and shouted with some lust, "What on earth do you want to do? Why do you hit people?" "I want to beat you." Chen Lian didn't involve Zhang Guorong, at least he wouldn't say it openly. Wang Jiayi actually knew it in his heart. When he saw Chen Lian's answer, he covered his mouth and shouted, "I know you are doing it because of Zhang Guorong, but his illness is an accident." At this time, Wang Jiayi even regarded Chen Lian and Zhang Guorong as a couple. Otherwise, why would Chen Lian be so excited? At this time, Chen Lian had no intention of taking action again. After pulling up a chair and sitting down, he threw out the contract between Leslie Chung and Wang Jiayi and said, "I'm here to terminate the contract with you. I won't film this drama anymore." If Chen Lian hadn't beaten anyone up and told Wang Jiayi to terminate the contract nicely, he might still be unwilling, but now he hates Chen Lian and even Leslie Chung, so it's a good idea not to film. "That's your breach of contract." Chen Lian scoffed and took out the check from his pocket, casually wrote down the amount of liquidated damages, threw it on the ground and said, "Here's the liquidated damages. You can call city to check. Oh, by the way, this is your medical expenses." Chen Lian took out another wad of dollars from his wallet and threw it on the ground. Wang Jiayi looked at the checks and cash thrown on the ground, feeling deeply insulted. He raised a trembling finger and pointed at Chen Lian, and was so angry that he couldn't speak. Chen Lian didn't even look at him. He raised his hand and glanced at the time and said, "I'll give you 10 minutes to cancel the contract with the check." After speaking, Chen Lian paused for a moment, looked at Wang Jiayi and said word by word, "You can also take this opportunity to call the police." Wang Jiayi glanced back subconsciously, thinking about what Chen Lian just said, "Should I call the police now and be thrown down by you before the police come?" Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 291. Chapter 281-279. I want to take a vacation. In the quiet room, the check thrown by Chen Lian on the ground was picked up, and the scattered banknotes were also picked up and placed neatly on the table. Liang Chaoyi looked at the money and took his hand away. He didn't push it to Wang Jiayi. He just stood aside silently and didn't know what to do next. Chen Lian glanced at the time and saw 8 minutes left, but Wang Jiayi stood there covering his mouth and still didn't move. Chen Lian was not in a hurry. He stood up and moved his wrists, which immediately made the 3 people in the room nervous. Wang Jiayi was the most nervous. He was afraid that Chen Lian would come over and slap him again. He felt that his teeth were loose and would probably fall out if he was slapped again. What? Don't you want to terminate the contract, or do you think the money is too little? Chen Lian took a step forward and looked at Wang Jiayi and asked. Wang Jiayi looked at Chen Lian silently. He didn't want to bow his head and accept Chen Lian's threat. Even if he wanted to terminate the contract, he would not do it in this way. Duke Fan couldn't stand it anymore and took the initiative to say to Chen Lian on behalf of Wang Jiayi, "You can just take Zhang Guorong away." Chen Lian glanced at him without replying. He just stared at Wang Jiayi and took another step forward. He moved his fingers lightly and clenched them into a fist, making a gurgling sound. If he was just taking people away, Chen Lian wouldn't be too lazy to talk to Wang Jiayi so much. He just wanted to make Wang Jiayi bow his head, no matter what method he used. For Chen Lian, whether it is through gangster methods or other aspects of crushing, the ultimate goal is the same, and he doesn't care about the process at all. Wang Jiayi was struggling at this time. He didn't want to be beaten and he didn't want to lower his head. Looking at Chen Lian's huge fist, the other side of his face began to hurt. Liang Chaoyi saw why Wang Jiayi was struggling, and turned his back to them silently, walked to the door of the room, lit a cigarette and smoked silently. Chen Lian didn't pay attention to Liang Chaoyi's actions, took another step towards Wang Jiayi, and raised his hand at the same time. Seeing Chen Lian's raised hand, Wang Jiayi suddenly panicked. He swallowed in fear and even scratched the wound. The pain made him shed tears. Cancel the contract. When Chen Lian's hand was about to fall, Wang Jiayi immediately shouted loudly, "I agree to terminate the contract. I will arrange for someone to issue a certificate of termination right away." Hearing what Wang Jiayi said, Chen Lian put down his hand, patted him gently on the shoulder and said, "Then I'll wait for you." "Happy cooperation, Director Wang. I'll wait for you downstairs." Wang Jiayi couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth, with a strange light shining in his little eyes, thinking that he must look good to Chen Lian when he returns to Xiangjiang. Let him know that there is no way for a mainlander like you to get around in Xiangjiang. Chen Lian could see what Wang Jiayi was thinking, but he didn't care at all. The society in Xiangjiang was a society of rich people after all. Chen Lian was not rich, but it was enough to deal with Wang Jiayi. Chen Lian pulled the curtain next to him and wiped Wang Jiayi's face roughly, then sneered and left. Duke Fan watched from the side, not knowing what to say. What Chen Lian did today really refreshed his previous understanding of Chen Lian. The most important thing is that he knew how to wipe off his fingerprints in the end, but aren't you worried about the 2 witnesses, Liang Chaoyi and me? Duke Fan asked himself. If he was asked to testify in court, he would not tell the truth. Liang Chaoyi is actually irritable. He is ready to join Wang Jiayi's company. Now that he thinks about it, he might as well think about it carefully. After Chen Lian left Wang Jiayi's room, he went to the restaurant downstairs and ordered himself a roasted beef bone and a chickpea pie that looked like a sauce-flavored pancake. These 2 foods taste very good. Chen Lian has not eaten for 7 or 8 hours, so he will have a good appetite. Before the meal was finished, there was another person in front of Chen Lian. Liang Chaoyi sat opposite Chen Lian and placed the unfinished contract termination documents of the Wang family in front of him. Chen Lian wiped his mouth, picked it up and looked at it to confirm it was correct before closing it. Liang Chaoyi looked at Chen Lian, considered it, and said, "You are too impulsive and you shouldn't hit someone. I think he should be beaten." Chen Lian paused for a moment, then smiled at Liang Chaoei and said, "Okay, let's not talk about him anymore. I'll treat you to whatever you want. Last time, Jialing invited me to dinner." Liang Chaoei shook his head and said, "Thank you, you're welcome, I have something else to go up to." Looking at Liang Chaoei, who had already stood up, Chen Lian smiled and nodded, "Okay, let's come out and play mahjong together next time we have time." Watching Liang Chaoei leave, Chen Lian remembered him well, but it was not a favor. He could only say thank you for his help during this time. If given the chance, Chen Lian would still be willing to help him once, or help Lu Jialing once. After Liang Chaoei disappeared from the restaurant, Chen Lian withdrew his gaze and asked the waiter to pack him a few more barbecues and pies before leaving. After returning to the hospital, as soon as Chen Lian opened the door and entered, several people in the ward immediately turned their heads and looked at him strangely. Especially Zhang Guorong looked like he was hesitating to speak, and finally sighed and said nothing. They already knew that Chen Lian had beaten Wang Jiayi. Liang Chaoei called specifically to tell him. Zhang Guorong was very moved, but also a little helpless. The way Chen Lian did things was too rude. Chen Lian didn't care about their looks, handed the food to Wang Zuxian and the others, and then sat beside Zhang Guorong's bed with a piece of pie and deliberately ate it deliciously. Zhang Guorong, who could only eat light hospital meals, looked at Chen Lian's appearance and really wanted to give him a break. However, when he thought about Chen Lian beating Wang Jiayi because of him, he couldn't say some words and could only helplessly endure Chen Lian's behavior of not needing to be beaten. After a while, after everyone had finished eating, Zhang Guorong took the initiative and said, "I will pay you back the 3 million when I return to Xiangjiang." Chen Lian raised his eyebrows nonchalantly and said, "Don't worry, I'll leave it to you first. Next year I will open an account with Mr. Tang to trade stocks, and I can make you rich again." Zhang Guorong didn't care about Chen Lian's remarks, thinking that he would pay him back when he returned to Xiangjiang. However, Cheng Shifen became interested. She looked at Chen Lian and asked curiously, "Are you going to trade in stocks again? I remember you made a lot of money last time, right?" "Well, just for fun, if Sister Shifen is interested, we can come together next year," Chen Lian explained with a smile. The financial crisis of 1997 was a good opportunity to make money. It would be unreasonable not to make a fortune. The main reason is to improve Mr. Tang's performance, not because I want to prepare a few more villas. The filming of Happy Together with Leslie Chung failed and the contract was terminated. The next day, Chen Lian and the others went to the United States together and found a private nursing home for Leslie Chung in New York for him to recuperate. Chen Lian did not stay with Leslie Chung. After staying in New York for a day and waiting for Mr. Tang to arrive, he returned to Hong Kong with Cheng Shifen and Wang Zuxian. After returning to Hong Kong, life became peaceful again. As for whether Wang Jiayi's Happy Together could be filmed, Chen Lian didn't care at all. It would be better if he couldn't. However, Cheng Shifen was worried that the Wang family would make some small moves before they came back, so she has been busy helping Chen Lian deal with the aftermath these days. At the very least, we must ensure that Wang Kar-wei will not say nonsense in the media. Even if he does say nonsense, he must be careful not to affect the image of Chen Lian and Leslie Chung. It is very troublesome to prevent this kind of thing. You have to spend money to deal with it, find connections, use other news to make transactions, etc. Cheng Shifen is also very busy. If she wants to control public opinion in Hong Kong, so many media outlets must be organized in advance. The only good thing is that Cheng Shifen had enough time to deal with the aftermath this time, otherwise she would not be able to prevent this matter even after the Wang family returned to Xiangjiang. Chen Lian, who had caused trouble, was very leisurely. After spending a few days with Wang Zuxian and the others, he was ready to return to the mainland. The artworks in the art space were almost gone, so Chen Lian had to go restock with Ji Fa, but this time Jifa couldn't stay in the capital for 2 days, and she had to go back to Paris to handle her gallery affairs. On the plane from Shenzhen to the mainland, Jifa fell asleep leaning on Chen Lian's shoulder very tiredly. Chen Lian sat there and looked at the clouds outside. He also felt a little tired recently, not physically, but mentally. This time I need to take a good rest before returning to the capital. After returning to the capital, Chen Lian and Jifa were busy for several days, reaching cooperation with more artists. Not only did they increase the price of art purchases, but they also signed more cooperation agreements to ensure the development of the artists. It's just like the original cooperation between Jifa and Chen Lian, except that the content of Chen Lian's cooperation is more extensive and not so detailed. After all, there are too many artists involved, and there is no guarantee that every artist will become an internationally renowned artist. After finishing all this, Jifa hurried back to Paris. Chen Lian is also going to take a vacation and have a good New Year's Day, but before that he still needs to meet someone. The main exhibitor of next year's Venice Art Biennale will meet with Chen Lian and wants to invite him to participate in next year's art exhibition. Germano Celent is a very interesting old man. Chen Lian was very fond of him when he met him. He also has a very interesting artistic concept and is the founder of Arte Povera. Chen Lian felt that there was a big difference in artistic concepts from Germano, but they were very happy sitting together and chatting. He has the characteristics of a street artist, but he is also extremely tolerant. When he chats with Chen Lian, he always talks about art and the universe. In his opinion, art is something that can expand in multiple dimensions. It is broad and tolerant, just like the universe. It contains so much material. When Germano talked about his rise, he happily said to Chen Lian, "You are different from many contemporary artists in China. You are much more mature than them. Whether in creation or in the face of such a grand art exhibition, it has its own unique rhythm." "Do other artists feel immature to you?" Chen Lian asked curiously. Germano laughed and said, "What I said is not accurate. It's not maturity but calmness. I met Cai Kuokiang before I met you. Do you know what request he made of me?" Before Chen Lian asked, Germano couldn't help but said, "He wants us to pay him a salary." He was very shy when he made this request, but then he was very persistent. His uneasiness is in strong contrast to yours. Chen Lian shrugged his shoulders and said, "His uneasiness comes from the embarrassment of life. He should be more mature and calm than me. If I were so embarrassed, I might not participate in art exhibitions or ask for salary. I would be more mature than me. He's more shy." Hearing what Chen Lian said, Germano smiled happily, looked at Chen Lian and said, "You are right, so I said at the beginning that you are very mature. You do not regard art as the whole of life. Many artists it's hard to balance art and life. You do a great job." "Maybe it's because I'm greedy for enjoyment," Chen Lian smiled. This topic did not last long. Germano turned his attention to the installation in the studio yard and said to Chen Lian seriously, "I decided to invite you to participate before I met you, but after seeing this installation, the decision turned into a mission. Next year's theme is future, present, past, and your work fits that theme perfectly." Chen Lian's eyes also fell on the wave device. He tilted his head and looked at it. After a while, he said, "I will participate, not because of the fit between my work and the theme, but because I like you very much, old man." "Haha, no matter what the reason is, I welcome it," Germano said with a laugh. Compared with lobbyists like Ito Murangi, Chen Lian prefers Germano. Even if he hasn't decided what to do for next year's art exhibition and is not sure whether he can do it, he will go to the Venice Art Double Annual Exhibition. It must be a pleasure to work with such an interesting person. Chatting with him can feel his care and tolerance for young artists. After the two chatted for a whole afternoon, they ended the conversation with some unfinished content. Chen Lian originally wanted to have dinner together and continue chatting, but Germano had to meet other artists. Chen Lian could only regret that he would go to Italy next time. Let's have a drink together. After Germano left, Gao Yuan, who had been in the lounge, ran over and looked at Chen Lian with starry eyes. The admiration in her eyes could not be suppressed. Although she couldn't quite understand what Chen Lian and Germano were talking about, she just felt very powerful. At foreign art exhibitions, well-known foreign artists come to invite Chen Lian in person. Isn't this awesome enough? Gao Yuan only came into contact with Chen Lian's circle for the first time at this time. It was different from the ones she had seen in advertising companies in the past. This time she understood that Chen Lian's circle was very high-end. It was like Chen Lian had explained to her the difference between art and ordinary objects before. A hierarchy of items based on utility. The lower the utility, the higher the level. From cars and chairs, to sculptures and paintings, the more useless it is, the more terrifying it is because it's harder for you to understand what it is, and therefore the higher the level. Gao Yuan still remembers the example Chen Lian gave at that time. He shook the ruler in his hand and said, "What is this? This is a ruler, what can it do? What is the device in the yard that can hit the soles of your feet? That's art, what can it do? Can bring thinking." Gao Yuan felt that she was not yet exposed to such advanced things, and now she wanted to do something lower level and more practical. For example, take off your long boots, then take off your white cotton socks, put your white and tender feet on Chen Lian's legs, and then use that very practical ruler to give yourself some thinking.